Hey everybody, how we doing? Happy Tuesday. That might help. Wait, wait. Hello, Don Henley. I did that song in Air Band when I was in high school. Yep. I wanted to wear. We decided we were going to wear like leather pants and spandex. So I'm like, where am I going to get leather pants? And my mom's like, I'll make you some. I'm thinking, okay. And the crotch split right down the middle, right when I was like into the song. Yeah, that was fun. Hello, everybody. Please like and share the live. Let's try to drive some traffic out there. Let's try to get to 25K as quickly as possible. That seems to be the magic number. Please tell all your friends and your foes. A few things I want to get to tonight, as is always the case. We tend to pivot. I usually have a plan in my head that I send it to Anthony in advance, and then the plans just go by the wayside because something else happened. Well, did something else happen? I think we will get into the just a quick summary of the Trump trial first, but just some housekeeping notes. We have a gifting goal this evening. There's also a subscriber goal. I want to thank all my subscribers. If you subscribe, as you know by now, you get access to custom emotes. If you'd like some merch, link in the merch store. And please join our Discord as we are looking to grow our community in Discord. And I want to thank everybody who's been involved in helping get that started. So there's a lot to ask, but and while you're in there, please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, as we're looking to move to a simulcast platform and try to expand what we can do here on this app. So we really appreciate that. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. All right. So what I want to kind of cover off on first is we should talk about the news coming out of New York courtroom. So today was David Pecker's, so a president of Pecker and a porn star walking to court. Today was David Pecker's second time on the stand. He's going to be testifying again on Thursday. They're taking court's closed tomorrow. Back at it. He'll likely testify the entire day. Cross-examination, they're saying, is on Friday. So he's a key witness. He, as a reminder, was the head of AMI, which is the company that owned National Enquirer. So he is going to be, and he and Trump are friends. And the funny thing that they were talking about in the reporting is that Trump has not gone after him, right? As of yet, we'll see. Pecker has immunity, and he is sort of painting the picture of all of the catch and kill tactics and strategies that they use to spread misinformation, literal lies about his campaign opponents, Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, and others, squelching information that was negative about Trump. They were doing sort of guerrilla marketing strategy surveys about what magazine covers featured Trump, how popular were they in the grocery stores and things like that. He's also talked a little bit about the timeline. So real quickly, September 2016, Trump discusses a $150,000 hush money payment understood to be for former Playmate model Karen McDougal with Michael Cohen. October 7th, Washington Post releases the Access Hollywood tape from 2005. October 27th of 2016, according to prosecutors, Cohen pays Stormy $130,000 through an attorney via a shell company in exchange for her silence about an affair she allegedly had with Trump in 2006. This $130,000 sum is separate from the $150,000 paid to McDougal. November 8th, he wins the presidency. February 2017, prosecutors say Cohen meets with Trump in the Oval Office to confirm how he would be reimbursed for the hush money payment Cohen fronted to pay Daniels. Under the plan, Cohen would send a series of false invoices requesting payment for legal services he performed pursuant to a retainer agreement and receive monthly checks for $35,000 for a total of $420,000 to cover the payment. His taxes and a bonus, prosecutors allege. Prosecutors also allege there was never a retainer agreement. And then in January 2018, the Wall Street Journal breaks news about the hush money payment Cohen made to Daniels in 2016. So that's kind of the big picture timeline. The gag order is they're still discussing that as to what the judge is going to do. The judge's hands are almost tied. You almost have to do something. But if he does hold him in contempt and sends him to jail, I'm sure Trump will appeal it, which is probably what he wants, because then that will stop the whole trial until the appeal goes through the courts. So here's where we are. Criminals do crime. That's what they do. All right. So we can talk about that throughout the course of the night. So looks like I've got a guess in the box, but I'll bring Whisper up. Anthony will be joining us as well. So hey brother. So you were there for that fun this morning.
I was.
So, really quickly, friends. So I was doing my morning stuff and working away, and I happened to hear, or I see Chelsea, Political Moms, was in a live, and I noticed that it was in Mother of Dragons. So it was in MOD's live, and I've been in her lives before, and I think Crow has as well. And I have no issues with MOD because she's not toxic. She doesn't say horrible things. She doesn't threaten people like most creators on the right do. Um, but she's very disingenuous and incredibly insincere. And whenever she's called out, whenever she's put on the spot, she pivots away from the conversation. So of course that happened. So I was the reason I joined is because somebody on her panel had said, I don't believe, or do you think that Trump would have been indicted if he wasn't running for president? And I jumped in and I answered the question the way I've always answered this question. And I went back a little further than that. I said, if Trump had handled COVID properly and led like leaders are supposed to lead, then he would have been reelected overwhelmingly. In my opinion, I don't think there's any doubt about that. If he accepted the results of the 2020 election and just walked away, and not organized a coup and not plotted to overthrow the government and conspired to conspire against voters, he wouldn't have been indicted for J6. If he turned over all the documents in Mar-a-Lago, he wouldn't have been indicted. If he didn't organize false electors and invite them to the Oval Office and then create scenarios in Georgia, he wouldn't have been indicted. He still would have been indicted in New York, the hush money case, because that happened beforehand, and similarly with Eugene Carroll and similarly with the New York fraud. So that's the reality of it. Of course, the people on his panel didn't want to hear that. Whisper can tell you. It went back and forth. It's just the bullshit, disingenuous arguments. The funny thing though is because this redacted document, comes out last night from Mar-a-Lago with some more information to help us all fill in the blanks, and they genuinely think that this document proves Trump's innocence. And I literally cited something from the document. I'm not sure if you were there for that part, bro, but I was literally reading a piece from the document, and Mod said, "Well, that's not from the document. That's not what it says." And I literally read it. Then I pulled up the subpoena, and she's like, "Well, that's the grand jury subpoena." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit, the subpoena that requested everything be turned over." So real quickly, what I just want to do is I just want to kind of talk our way through this quickly. So this is the actual subpoena, United States District Court for the District of Columbia, subpoena to testify before a grand jury. All right, testifies also means production of documentation. To the custodian of records, the office of Donald J. Trump, 1100 South Ocean Boulevard, Palm Beach. You are commanded to appear in this U.S. District Court at the time, date, and place shown below to testify before the court's grand jury. When you arrive, you must remain at the court until the judge or a court officer allows you to leave. They give the date and time, May 24th, 2022. You must bring with you the following documents: electronically stored information or objects. And it lists everything. Any and all documents or writings in the custody or control of Donald J. Trump and or the office of Donald J. Trump. And it literally goes through the list, all the classification categories: top secret, confidential, SCI, no foreign. I mean, the list is long. There's probably 45 or 50 entries. Okay, there it is right there. So then if you scroll down a little bit further in this particular document, you get the letter. So this is from Jay Bratt, who is the Chief Counterintelligence and Export Control Section. He works for the DOJ. Mr. Evan Corcoran, Esquire. Sorry, one more time.
Sorry, what exhibit are you in? Just so I can make sure I'm following.
This is on page 404. This is the Mar-a-Lago grand jury subpoena. JustSecurity.org. They've edited it.
I'm on the actual PDF. Sorry. So
I'm on that too, but I'm just pulling the highlights. So I'm not sure where it is in that document, but
here it is. I found it.
14 of 18. So the letter, Evan Corcoran, Esquire. Dear Mr. Corcoran, thank you for agreeing to accept service of the grand jury subpoena on behalf of the custodian of records for the office of Donald J. Trump. Okay. The subpoena calls and asks for everything. Everything that has classification. Again, the timeline goes back to January 20th, 2021. Trump left office. At that time, the clock started to tick. 18 months, and still they had not turned over everything. So they start with the subpoena, okay? Hey, Anthony, how are you, brother? We're going to get into this. This is going to be great, you guys. Good evening, brother. All right. So we have the subpoena. So then we go to the indictment. So this is the Mar-a-Lago indictment. This is actually the superseding indictment. This is on page 21 of 60 in the superseding indictment, paragraph 53. The date on the subpoena we just talked about was May 11th. Paragraph 53. On May 11th, 2022, the grand jury issued a subpoena to the office of Donald J. Trump requiring the production of all documents. We just talked about that. May 22nd, now to enter the storage room at 347, Walt Now, to co-defendant. and left approximately 34 minutes later carrying one of Trump's boxes. On May 23rd, 2022, Trump met with Attorney 1 and Trump Attorney 2 at the Mar-a-Lago Club to discuss the response to the May 11th subpoena. Trump Attorney 1 and Trump Attorney 2 told Trump that they needed to search for documents that would be responsive to the subpoena, meaning everything that had classification markings connected to them, and provide a certification that there had been compliance with the subpoena. Trump, in sum and substance, made the following statements, among others, as memorialized by Trump Attorney 1. Trump Attorney 1, by the way, is Evan Corcoran. I don't want anybody looking. I don't want anybody looking through my boxes. I really don't. I don't want you looking through my boxes. Well, what if it happens we just don't respond at all or don't play ball with them? Wouldn't it be better if we just told them we don't have anything here? Well, look, isn't it better that there are no documents? Again, I don't know how much more of a picture that we can paint, okay? And then that leads us a little bit further down to June 2nd. On June 1st, at 2022, beginning at 12:52 p.m., this is paragraph 59, if you're following along, on page 23. On June 1st, 2022, beginning at 12:52 p.m., Nauta removed approximately 11 boxes from the storage room. On June 11th, 2022, Trump spoke with Attorney 1 by phone and asked whether Trump Attorney 1 was coming to the Mar-a-Lago Club the next day and for exactly what purpose. Trump Attorney 1 reminded Trump that Attorney 1 was going to review boxes that had been transported from the White House and remained in storage at the Mar-a-Lago Club. So Trump Attorney 1 could have so that Trump Attorney 1 could have a custodian of records certify that the May 11th subpoena had been complied with fully. On June 2nd, the day that Trump Attorney 1 was scheduled to review Trump's boxes in the storage room, Trump spoke with Nauta on the phone at 9:29 for approximately 24 seconds. Later that day, between 12:33 and 12:52, Nauta and De Oliveira moved approximately 30 boxes from Trump's residence to the storage room. In sum, between May 23rd and June 2nd, before Trump Attorney 1's review of Trump's boxes in the storage room, Nauta, at Trump's direction, moved approximately 64 boxes from the storage room to Trump's residence, and Nauta and De Oliveira brought back to the storage room only approximately 30 boxes. Neither Trump nor Nauta informed Attorney 1 of this information. That's the picture. Everybody following along at home? Okay. Good evening, Anthony. So the reason that these fine gentlemen are here, Anthony's here every night and Whisper as well, is because newly released information came out last night. This has been debated back and forth. Aileen Cannon was initially going to release everything with the names unredacted or redacted. Redacted would be names are blacked out. Unredacted would be not. Didn't want the witnesses' names to show out. So there's a lot of black ink connected to it. There's a lot of references to person 15, person 16. And in Mods Live, the way the conversation went, they literally believe that this document proves that there's this conspiracy connected and that all the documents were turned over or the documents didn't exist or the FBI was making this shit up. So I asked these guys if they wouldn't mind digging in. So Anthony, why don't you sort of start with what you saw, and then I want Whisper to jump in because Whisper heard that nonsense this morning that I was in.
Yeah. Well,
everybody like and share the live, please. Thank you very much.
Sorry for my tardiness. My wife says hello, but she's working out in the actual office, so I'm pulling triple duty.
Gotcha.
And it's Passover. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Here, I think, is literally the most important thing. An associate of former President Trump told the FBI of advising Trump to return documents the National Archives was seeking nearly a year before agents searched his Mar-a-Lago home, according to newly unsealed filings. That one sentence tells us absolutely that this entire scenario that MAGA believes in is a lie, and it is because of Trump.
Indeed.
Because there wasn't just one person that told him to do this. Trump absolutely knew he had things he was not entitled to. We will get into it a little bit later, in which we know for an absolute fact this bullshit of waving his hand didn't exist either.
Correct.
We will also be able to prove through this testimony that Trump's ego is once again front and center and the problem.
Indeed.
Had former President Trump simply, a year prior to the FBI showing up with a search warrant, just had given back or worked out a deal where he was going to ask to keep certain things, right? Like Clinton did for the diary. None of this this whole entire case wouldn't be here.
Yeah. No
but
doubt.
People on the right are just so incredibly brainwashed and under some kind of mind control that people can get on this app and have a live and literally say that an actual FBI document is fake. Mm-hmm. Dear MAGA, I have some good and bad news for you. You are not the arbiters of the truth, because if it hit you in the head, you wouldn't know what it hit you in the head.
Exactly.
When you see a heavily redacted document, that's the authenticity that you need, right? This doesn't show up on Q. This literally has only been out now, I think, for about 20 hours, right? So talking about hot off the press. The document I'm referring to is Exhibit D, and the summary of Exhibit D. Because it's been unclassified, which now, honestly, I don't know how I feel about the changing of the classification of this document, because it's certainly not going to help Trump. But I am really ready to let you and Whisper walk through this insanity that happened this morning. Because there's nothing in this document that proves Trump is a victim, that proves the FBI did something, right?
Contrary. Yeah.
Trump did this to himself because he can't listen to other people. And something else that's super duper important, I'm gonna tease this one out. There was a person, and I'm trying to find out what, I think he's person number 24, that was pushing the declassified everything line of thinking. And Trump had never known about that until this person put it in his ear.
That he had the ability to declassify.
Right. Trump literally took the advice of a politically motivated individual, because that individual wanted to spend more time with Trump, wanted to get into politics. If you want to know whether someone is truly stupid or not, or willfully ignorant or not, ask yourself a question. Does this person take the last thing that was said to them and run with it? Because if the answer is yes, then they're about as stupid or willfully ignorant as Trump.
Agreed.
It's right here in the document. And with that, I will allow you to riff and rip. And if need be, I will go grab one of my 5 dog leashes downstairs and bring them up for a prop.
Got you. Appreciate that, though. So, Whisper, your first of all, your takeaway from what you saw this, again, nothing outrageous. It wasn't like this, it wasn't like a David live, but it was just the misinformation and the disingenuous and insincerity, and then what you've uncovered over the course of the day. So, please, the floor is yours, sir.
This is the thing with when we're looking at conservatives like the ones that you're referencing this morning. I'm friends with them, and so I want to start off that way. Like we have genuine conversations, but when it comes to the reading of these documents, it seems the majority of the base just doesn't go and read them. More than likely, it's due to a lack of understanding or a lack of ability to comprehend. We do have a 79% literacy rate in the United States. That's based on a 6th grade reading level, and these are far above a 6th grade reading level.
Right.
It's also a little bit difficult to piece together just due to the redactions. If you're not used to reading through large swaths of documents that have big portions of black ink in them, then you probably it's overwhelming and it's ridiculous to kind of get through. But one of the things to take into account, like there's a common argument for things like Donald J. Trump's Q clearance, right? That he could have declassified them after. And the problem is that everyone denies that. And in fact, in a statement by this memorandum, the Office of General Counsel advises you, as a matter of law, the Q clearance granted to Donald J. Trump on February 9th, 2017, terminated by the conditions of the original grant upon completion of Mr. Trump's term as president of the United States at 12 p.m. on January 20th, 2021. As such, any current entry in the Department of Energy's Central Personnel Clearance Index, CPCI, and the Clearance Action Tracking System, CATS, reflecting an active Q clearance for Mr. Trump based upon the February 9th, 2017 authorization must be immediately amended. These systems must be promptly modified to reflect the terminated status of Mr. Trump's Q clearance. By this memorandum alone, we can, and this is in the documents that we have here, that shows that there was no power for Trump to have declassified any of the documents in his possession after January 20th. Which, if you go by the date of January 20th, and there's been nothing that's been put into, there's been nothing that's provided by either side that shows that Donald Trump had made any request to declassify any of the documentation in question prior to January 20th, 2021, we can therefore determine that the classified documents, top secret documents, every document that needed to be kept secret was in fact still classified. So that takes that away. We also have specific notes. We have notes from the FBI agents that were there. One thing that I take particular interest to is part of the timeline. Part of the timeline is when the FBI arrived to start their investigation. They were promptly greeted by a few persons, person 19, person 24, and a few others. And they were handed, at this point, they were met there. They were handed a Red Wing file, I guess is what they call it, and which would fit inside a courier case. And they said, "Hey, here's all the classified documents. You guys have a good one. Here's what you needed." And we're attempting to intercept at that point. The FBI continued on their search, and that's when they started finding more boxes in Mar-a-Lago. The first set of boxes that they came upon, they approximately counted 50, and that was in the ballroom, from what I can tell. That was the first one. Again, this is a little bit convoluted on the timeline because there's a lot of blacking out that's going on, but it looks like that was the first place that they came upon. And then they were able to extract further documents from the storage room. They don't specifically list the bathroom, and I'm not sure why they don't call it a bathroom. It looks like they just call it like a secondary storage room, but they have the pictures. I don't know. They just call it like a secondary storage room. They're not actually listing it as a restroom or bathroom. And so a lot of people are like, there was nothing found in the bathroom. Well, it was a bathroom, and they have the pictures for it. But so far, what we've got, we have one item in box 33. One item 33 was in box A33. Item 32, box A13. It goes down this entire list. And if anybody wants it, I'd be glad to put it in Fax Discord. But I actually have the full PDF of all of the documents that were found to still be under a clearance. These are all of them. And these were found in various places.
And those were listed in the indictment. They may not, that list
Correct.
may be even more comprehensive, but the indictment includes a list of the documents, their classification, not
Yes.
what the document was, just what it was, how it was classified. Obviously, we wouldn't know what it was, but it has a reference to what it might be.
Correct. And so the second narrative that's pushed is there's only 15 boxes. There was 33 boxes at this point that were pulled. Now, I think they used the 15 because maybe the majority of the documents were found in 15 boxes, but you can't just take away that there weren't more boxes seized. Right. They also, per these documents, also due to communication, it looks like with person 19, not sure who person 19, no, I'm sorry, person 18. Person 18 I would be very clear in my wording here. It alludes to that there were many more boxes moved from Mar-a-Lago to a separate location. not on Mar-a-Lago. It doesn't say Bedminster, and it also doesn't say where's the other one? Doesn't say the Trump Tower, the penthouse. It doesn't list it as White House. It's just a different location, and then it's blacked out as far as where that location is. As far as when you go through the documents, Bedminster, the penthouse, White House, all those places are listed in other documents. So it would make sense that if they were going to redact it in one place, they would redact it in all places. And so I'm assuming this is a different.
Right. In another part of that story, we played the interview that I forget his name at this point. He was the driver, the valet, who was part of transportation
Correct.
in the Trump org at that time. We played that entire interview where he was facilitating putting boxes from Mar-a-Lago in the SUV and then on the plane. So we know
Correct.
boxes were not only in Mar-a-Lago. We also know the documents ended up in Bedminster because of the audio of him sharing classified information. So it was, you have documents and you have documents and you have documents.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Chelsea, please request again. Bring it back up.
I think the point of contention, and like I said, it would be really, really boring for us to go through these documents just as they sit, because it'd be very difficult to read. It'd be very difficult to go over it.
Sure.
But I would say that I stand by this at this point. I don't think they're going to get Trump on the current case. Don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a hung jury. But on this documents case,
I disagree.
I think I think that this documents case is still the strongest. I think there's an obstruction charge here. I think it would be almost impossible for there not to be an obstruction charge. Whether or not the willful retention comes off as a convicted charge, that's going to be one way or the other depending on the jury.
Sure.
But I don't see any way that any jury could possibly, with just this list of documents, and there's I'm assuming thousands more, there's no way that they're not going to find an obstruction charge on this. It's just no way.
I would agree. And I again, the reason that I wanted these guys to have part of this conversation is just because of what I experienced this morning. Just the fact that the problem is that, like I said, MOD's got about 45,000 followers. She's highly respected within her circles on this app, and her followers, the little dragons, believe whatever she says, and it creates this model where this misinformation that they have. I mean, I asked the question. I said, I gave the scenario. I've given this scenario before, that if we have, if you and I are running for office, Crow, and we're running for mayor of Candyland, and you find out during the campaign that I've got an illicit substance lab in my garage, and you go over there and find out you've got pictures, you've got evidence, it's a drop dead case. Obviously, that's going to be considered political. It doesn't change the fact that there's evidence connected to allegations of crime. And I pressed them on that. I said, are we not willing to investigate allegations? And just Chelsea was there too. Hey, friend. And the irony behind the lack of sincerity that these conversations have. And here we are trying to have these conversations with people in good faith. Yes, we get frustrated. Yes, we yell. And yes, Anthony pulls his hair out. He's got enough to spare. But it's just one of these, it's another scenario that we see. I saw Chelsea in there and I jumped in to kind of help her out. And it was just one of those things. Evening friend, what do you have to say about that this morning and just everything that you've learned over the course of the day? We lost her. She's not back.
Oh no, lost Chelsea again.
My bad.
There you go. That's all good.
So
That's all
no, I was in there last night, and then they sent me this motion to compel that Trump's lawyers put up, and they were like, you should read this. And so it's like the unredacted version. It's like 68 pages worth of like what they think happened in their scenario. And like, I decided to just go ahead and read the whole thing. And when I went up to argue today, I was arguing on behalf of like some of the flaws that I saw in this.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, I'll send it to you later so you can read it, so you could just at least see this side that they're speaking from, because I think it's so helpful when we're having that conversation to at least know what the other side is going to say.
Sure, but I think that my point, and that's absolutely, please send it along. My point in that is that they take the Trump team's opinion on this entire thing as fact, and that's the issue. That's the worst part about it. It's, again, like I said earlier, it's one thing to be angry, it's one thing to yell and they cry and they scream, but to be that disingenuous and that insincere And I was pressed by somebody on their panel to say, well, all you want to do is you're talking about allegations. I'm like, yeah, that's what an indictment is. It's an allegation of charges that needs to be investigated. That's why you go to court. And, that's
Oh
what
yeah,
that's.
that part.
Yeah, I was like, you
I
gotta be
forgot about
kidding
that.
me.
They're like, the indictment's not evidence, or like, not saying it is. We're reading the indictment. Just like the evidence is going to be presented, but here's the indictment. This is what you do. Yeah,
Exactly. And he's like, how do you know it's all true? I'm like, I don't. That's why you go to court. Well, we've got evidence. We know what the documents are. We know what they found. Well, how do you know they found that? Again,
Their timetable doesn't match up for some of the things that they're saying, though.
Their timetable.
There's several times.
Yeah.
Which one?
Like their timeline on saying that this was never referred to the DOJ when they said it did. It actually, they think it happened later. And I was like, no, because like this person from NARA is literally talking about how they actually contacted the DOJ. And it happened at this time. Like there is no.
We've got dates. We've got dates. We've got dates. We've got times. We've got everything.
Yes.
Yeah. We've got dates of the time that the subpoena was issued. We got dates and times of when the subpoena was accepted. We've got timestamps based on the video cameras at Mar-a-Lago of when people went into storage rooms and when they left, and boxes that they had, and conversations between Nauta and De Oliveira and Yuli. I don't know. It's frustrating, I have to admit, because it's the insincerity of these conversations. And I think the reason I wanted to talk about this tonight is because, we see these breadcrumbs, right? I disagree with you on your statement, Whisper, about the New York case, because again, there's so many elements here. A hung jury is always possible in any case, but again, the evidence is overwhelming. So I would use the same argument that we have in Florida. The evidence is overwhelming. This is paper.
Well,
whether they can make the connection to the felony in all 34, that's open for debate. But you can't deny that the evidence is overwhelming. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I was trying to find the federal statute that they were going to use in New York, because there was all misdemeanors except they were banking it on a felony, and it's like 17.152 is the statute they're going to be using, and it's like a statute that was updated in like 2021. But it was already the same thing before. And that's the biggest argument. It's like,
they amended like one line.
2021, of course, when Trump is like, it's another switch of a law.
And part of their argument, again, part of the disingenuous nature of these conversations, I won't even call it a debate, is that when the government goes and gets a subpoena from a grand jury, obviously the grand jury has to decide whether or not there's enough evidence in here, preponderance of evidence to have the subpoena issued in the first place. They get that. They go back in the same scenario. They get the preponderance of evidence warranted that the subpoena was not honored in full as it was supposed to. That triggers a search warrant. So they take that as part of the deep state and whatever else. But yet a statement from the lawyers representing the defendant, they take as definitive proof that there's a conspiracy. Basic civics would tell you that or basic understanding of the law would tell you that is just nonsense. And I'm saying that to people, and I appreciate you guys being here. And for people who are in the chat listening, if you're in these conversations, if you're unsure about things, and we have friends and foes that troll our chat, we know that. The reality is such that, I should say, the evidence is there. It's the reality that you're missing. Now, I believe in the rule of law. I believe that everybody deserves a fair trial and the presumption of innocence. It doesn't change the fact that there are allegations of crimes that have been committed here, and it needs to go through the process. I keep saying, if the Trump team felt so confident that they were innocent, why would they not want this case to go to trial? Why would they not want these things to happen? He's got a right to appeal, no doubt about it. Our judicial system is what it is. But it is crazy that we are 3 years out from this thing and they still think he's the victim. That is just delusional behavior.
Can one of you guys send me Jack Smith's filing? Because I lost it.
Which filing?
The one that he just did, 20 hours ago? Or whatever it's the...
Are you talking about the...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's not... Okay, yeah, I can send it to you. Yeah, I'll get it over to you.
Thanks.
I've got it in a PDF form. It's wild. Like going through the like going through some of the interviews with Person 49, super interesting. Like the way that is going about.
I want to read it side by side from the defendant's motion to compel discovery because it's really
Jeez, the defendant's motion using that's another thing. Using the defendant's motion to compel discovery as a point of contention that there's no guilt, that
Exactly.
this proves it, is wild conjecture. Like
My
that is
point,
just
exactly.
outside. You have no idea what you're talking about. That
I know. So one of the things that I took out from this, I made a note. So person 16, this is quoted from the document. Person 16, who don't know who that is, Mod seems to think it was a lawyer. It says that. I don't know. I'm not going to make that assumption. Might be. Who knows? Told F. POTUS, former president of the United States, quote, whatever you have, give everything back. Let them come here and get everything. Don't give them a noble reason to indict you because they will.
That's person number 16.
Exactly. Right? And then later, according to person 16, there was no standing declassification order. The first time person 16 heard that former president of the United States had declassified everything was when it appeared in the media in 2022.
correct.
So his entire argument has been literally debunked by this set of documents that the opposition seems to think clears Trump based on, I don't know, it's comical in a way. It's hilarious. And then where's the other piece? Did I do one more? I don't think I see the other one. But you said it earlier, Anthony, about how this myth of declassification, that he could wave his hands, and we know for a fact that all the items were declassified. We also know for a fact, based on declassification procedures and processes, it's not that simple. Yes, the president has broad authority to declassify, but you can't do it in a vacuum. I still can't believe we're talking about this. I mean, it was my choice, obviously, but I still can't believe we're talking about this because there is just so much misinformation that continues to spill out about this nonsense.
Yeah,
I guess,
Crow,
stand-
are you spinning your mouse wheel?
No. Yeah. There's a lot of documents to go through.
I love you, but I'm going to get you a silent fidget toy.
I just changed it. Yes, I just turned the switch so you can't hear it anymore.
I think there's 3 really important things that we need to discuss.
Person 18.
Yeah. First thing is one's ability to read in English when it comes to regulatory environments or laws does not qualify them to understand what is written.
Comprehension.
How do I know this? I've been working in a field for 26 years, and I still have to ask lawyers about certain regulations that I've been reading off and on for 26 years. And I'm a chief risk officer, so I'm pretty freaking good at my job, right? So that's one thing. 2, I'm in no way qualified, even with my CV, to be telling you how to interpret laws at all. Even if I was a lawyer, I would not be qualified. No one knows except for the regulatory body that crafted the language, right? And they're all lawyers, right? Lawyers write for lawyers. They don't write for citizens. That's just the way it is. And the last thing is, every conservative live that I go to, every single person lacks critical thinking skills. They find something that they think is something because they don't understand connections or correlations, right?
I would not put Maud in that bucket, Anthony. I would not put her in that. I think it's just intentional. I think she literally.
Well, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now, I don't know if Maud went to law school or not, but I do know I could find out quite quickly if I actually knew who this person was, right? First and last name, and just say the city and state where they live in. I could tell you emphatically whether they did or not. Here's what I do know about that person. That person is
share, please.
That person is a performative grifter. That's all I can tell, is that they're just a performative grifter who is here to make money, to get clicks, to live and feed off of drama. but I am sorry. I will definitively say that that person in no way is qualified to act like an authority in the manner that person acts like an authority. And I'm saying this because I've been doing my job longer than that person's been doing their job, and I still ask for help because I know that I am not qualified to give the type of analysis that that person gives. I'm sorry. I will not defend or support her at all. I just will not. And this is the problem. We have to stop doing that. We have to stop defending these people. They are indefensible. Whether it's a pretend performative thing or not, it's causing damage. And they need to be stopped, and you're still spinning your wheel. And I swear to God, my OCD is going nuts. I love you.
You can't hear me. How you can hear me?
Oh yeah,
How can you hear me?
we can hear you.
I am mute.
Nope,
No,
you're
you're
not
not.
muted.
That's funny.
Now you are. So
Yeah,
Listen, I switched phones. I switched to my Android, and my headset does not interact the same as with my iPhone. So with my iPhone, this is the headset that I use for this one.
yeah,
it's all right. We got
my last point as I land the plane here. I don't care if somebody's a good person. When they're being performative and they're putting out misinformation and they're purposefully being disingenuous, you're making people believe you and follow you because they think you're smart because you sound like you know what you're talking about.
correct. That's my point.
And that is super dangerous, and that is very cult-like behavior. It needs to be called out, and we cannot tolerate it, regardless of how we feel about somebody, because that person's not being a good, decent human being. They're not being a patriot.
Yeah, I mean that's as we
Right?
know, it's not easy to get opposition in our various lives as much anymore. It depends on the platform. So that's one of the reasons that I go to these other places. And I know that Chelsea goes there a lot, and I know that Whisper goes there a lot. I mean, these are the things that we have to do to try to push back against this misinformation because they live in there. It's like the hive mentality. You know, the queen dragon is going to tell her people exactly what to think, and they suck it up, and they literally suck it up. So. Whisper, you're going to say something about person 18 or something specific about that individual? You're muted.
I hate that I can't just unmute up here anymore. No, person 18 is a very interesting person to me. Now, a lot of people are honing in on like person 16, person 24.
So, friends, just to level set, what we're talking about is documents that were released last night. There was controversy about whether or not the names were going to be included. It's redacted information, evidence gathering. This has been on Eileen Cann's desk for weeks. So that's what we're talking about. Okay, people don't know.
So, person 18 has consistently seemed to be at the forefront of the obstruction portion of this. They were the ones that met the FBI. They were the ones that had communications with the FBI prior to their arrival. They're the ones. So, for instance, telephonic contact with attorney 18. Attempted contact. There's been a lot of communication with person 18, which is obviously an attorney because they keep on referencing them as an attorney. But this attorney in particular has been absolutely on the wrong side multiple times according to these documents. Like I said, including meeting the FBI out front after arranging for them to come, intercepting the FBI and going, here's all the documents. And it was just basically a folder that would fit into a courier bag. That's it. It insinuates that that person was trying to stop the FBI from entering the premises. It insinuates that this person had constantly had contact, knew when they were going to be there, knew when they were going to be showing up. More than likely, person 18 is going to be a critical witness when they bring them up and start asking them questions about their involvement. It also seems that person 18 has a lot of text messages that are redacted right now. A lot of text messages that were redacted right now,
That
directly
could be
between themselves.
That could be Walt
Yeah.
Nauta.
Could be directly between himself and the FBI. also between themselves and Donald Trump. Direct correspondence with Donald Trump. That's why person 18 is so intriguing to me. Person 16 seems to be like, smoking gun type person that's just going to be like, yeah, this is what he should have done. He was wrong. I'm going to tell everybody that I'm just going to tell everybody the truth, right? Person 18 seems to actually have had a more critical role.
And
So
wasn't person 16 also the one who encouraged his family, Trump's family, to kind of get
Correct.
involved and turn over
Say,
everything
hey,
as well?
yeah, hey, turn all this over. Like person 16 seems to be a pretty straight shooter from what we can see here. Like they were trying to get Trump to do the right thing multiple times. And so if that's the case, I don't think person 16 is going to be critical. But person 18 could possibly be the smoking gun that gets the obstruction portion of it.
Here's the thing that kills me about person 18, and I don't know why it kills me, but this line. Person 18 was brought on by person 5. Person 18, Jim Trusty, was brought in after F. POTUS saw him on television.
What? Oh my.
Yeah.
I surround myself with the best people. I know all the best words. No one knows more about the law than I do. How about agree to never agree?
Yeah, I'm gonna need you guys to send this to me because I lost mine.
Are you in our Discord?
No, I need to be in.
I'm sorry. We're going to have to bounce you and block you now.
Damn.
Get into Discord. We'll send it to you.
Okay.
Please, we'll use that as a plug. Everybody get in the Discord. Have some fun in there. It's chaos at times.
Sorry, I had to do that. I was trying to act like a conservative live.
Right.
Because that's the type of logic they use. Oh, you're not subscribing. Sorry, you have to go.
Well, you bring up a really good point though, Anthony. Because what's Alina Habba's background? Didn't she defend like parking garages or something like that, or is that Christina Bobb? I don't even.
I think Habba had something to listen. First of all, nothing wrong with people who own parking lots. Let's just
not at all. Nothing. But again, you're asking that person to be on your legal team defending against.
Right.
Insurrection.
Right.
It's weird.
And obstruction of justice. It's like, all right. So what are our final takeaways on this, you guys? I mean, so I think what I'm hoping to do here is for people who, if you're out, Taryn was also in there, a mutual of ours. He was in there too. He got booted early. He couldn't take the nonsense, and he messaged me. He's like, dude, seriously, I don't know how the hell you stay in there. I'm like, whatever. I enjoy it. The flogging. What we hopefully will be able to provide people are some tools to be able to push back against this information. Remember, friends, if you're on the correct side of history as we navigate through this. We will allow the legal system to do what it does. We know we can't put a lot of faith in it.
Yes.
That's why it's really important to vote, because these people do vote. But the information, and I forget the quote that we used the other night. The information, and the evidence is obvious. It's the reality that's not.
Correct. I just put 2 links in the chat for those of you who have been kind enough, unlike Chelsea, to join our Discord.
I don't think the links will actually go in the chat, Anthony. So you won't actually see them in the chat. They don't go through.
Well, so
you'll have to DM for it.
I could paste them, but they won't show up.
Correct.
Yep.
It's stupid.
Well, but it looks like I can click on the link.
Yes, you can see it from your side, but nobody else will be able to see it.
Well, poop technology.
Yeah, the best place to put it is in your link trees.
There you go.
If you have a link tree, put your Discord.
Okay,
in
fine.
your
I'm going to get a link tree. Okay, I'll do it now. This damn peer pressure.
I have a link. In the meantime, we can put it in mine. So we'll have that taken care of. Get with that program, will you, Anthony? So what's your overall takeaway from this, Whisper?
Like I said, my overall takeaway is still relatively the same as what it was in the beginning. As far as the strength of cases, the documents case seems to just be overwhelmingly strong at this point. There's nothing. I cannot see even a jury that may favor. Let me put it this way: the jury that's going to be put onto this case, the documents case, is going to be very different from the New York jury.
Correct.
It's going to take a lot longer to place them. They're going to have to be vetted. They're going to have to, arguably, more than likely, they're going to have to be vetted to the point of having a clearance.
Agreed.
And so the odds of someone that is not cognitive and able to comprehend what's going on is much slimmer in this case. I would say that we're going to have a much more formidable jury that actually can understand what's being presented. They're going to see a lot more than we ever will of this case. And so I still think, yes. And I think that case, like I said, I find it very, very hard to believe with what we currently have, there's any way that there's not going to be an obstruction charge on this one. I stand by that this is the strongest case. I stand by that this document dump does nothing for Trump. In fact, it looks like it does the opposite for him.
I would agree. I would agree with you. I would agree with you 100%. I've always thought that this was the most obvious and the most severe case. I should say from a potential sentencing perspective, it's the Georgia case, because in RICO and Georgia require it's a 5-year minimum, and there's no pardoning in their system. So that's the one that is the most consequential from a incarceration perspective. But I would agree from an evidence perspective and from what we're facing here. I would add, though, because again, that the obstruction in Mar-a-Lago, the documents that they found that they obstructed were NDI information. So then, because of what was obstructed, NDI, the Espionage Act, comes into play. So I can certainly see how those, but to your point earlier, even if they remove the NDI element of this, right? Even if they just took that away, even if they don't, I mean, he hasn't been indicted for insemination, or for insemination. Wow, dissemination, which we know he did with the Bedminster audio tape that we have. That hasn't even been brought up, right? So obstruction alone, and again, MAGA, obstruction is a crime. No one here is saying he's guilty, throw his ass in jail. Although we can look at the evidence and say it's overwhelming that the evidence, based on everything that we have, what we're saying is allow the process to happen. If he can mount a defense and he gets a fair trial and a jury of his peers says that he's not guilty, then we accept the results. But you have to accept the results if the same thing happens and he's found guilty. That's what we're talking about here. But for people to say that Trump has no culpability, that he's not responsible for anything, that he doesn't bear any responsibility for anything he's done, and that's what I experienced this morning. Everything was just a pivot. Literally everything was a pivot. That's what it's like on the other side, friends. Stay away. It's no fun over there.
Let me also further this. This is something it's often misconstrued, and I think
Sure.
This is something that we need to do better at as a whole. Absolutely, I think there's a separation when we start talking about these cases. I think there's a clear separation about our feelings and our opinions on this based on what we've seen versus calling someone guilty, right? I 100% feel my opinion, he's guilty, he's going to be found guilty, it's going to happen. But as of right this second, he's not guilty of anything.
Agreed.
And I want to make sure that we're construing that properly, because sometimes it gets into the form of, well, yeah, he did it, or no, he didn't, or yeah, he did it, or no, he didn't. It's like, here's the thing. It's not for us to decide. He's going to have to go before a jury of his peers, and it's going to have to happen.
Totally agree. We say that all the time. I think the difference is that they believe that he's not guilty.
Correct.
And what we're saying is that we believe that there's evidence to support an indictment, and we believe the evidence is overwhelming, but he's not been found guilty and or not guilty because it hasn't gone to trial yet. I think that's
Correct.
the difference between how we look at it and how they look at it.
Yeah,
Apparently
absolutely.
the link for our Discord is expired.
And it's not working in the link tree as well.
Oh, you'll just have to copy it and do it again. Sometimes that happens.
I tried it like 3 times already. It's not working, and other people are saying
No.
it's not working either.
No, the link tree one will just have to be updated. If you just go to your Discord, you can copy the link again. It'll just create a new one.
Okay. If I do that now, I will take the live down probably because I'm just not
Yeah,
that
you're
person. But I'll do that later. Chelsea, anything? So sorry, friend. I'll make sure that we take care of that before the night's over. Chelsea, anything else from your perspective of what you've seen? Because I know you go over there a lot.
I did.
For those of you who don't know Political Mom, she spends a lot
So
of
much time
in those spaces over there. She does the work. Let me tell you what. And Whisper does too. I mean, you guys both do the work. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say that somebody subbed me, so now Anthony can't kick me out of the live, so that's right. Shout out to whoever did it. I don't know who did it, but
Thank you for that. Appreciate that, you guys. Thank you.
Second of all, like, the best advice that I've taken is like when I go in there, I try to be prepared because it's hard to go 8v1 when you don't know what you're talking about. So like the best advice I ever got was to look at both sides. So like there are times that Republicans will send me things and I will look at it from both sides objectively and then go into the box. I will absolutely not go in unprepared. I've
Same.
I've literally been swallowed enough times to not go in there unprepared. But it's really helpful to really do the best you can to read everything because there's so much here that goes unnoticed, but also that gets misinformed so much. It's like a game of telephone. Like that's what I feel like I'm living through is a game of telephone.
That's true.
That's
That,
been my
that's a really good perspective, and part of misinformation is chaos by design. The more information you throw out there, the more confused you make your base, your masses, your viewers, your listeners. That's by design, right? So the fact that what's the name of this document even called, that the defendant's motion to compel discovery. So people on the right are holding on to this, like we discussed earlier, because the Trump team is using this as, well, here's the proof that we've done nothing wrong. No, that's your opinion. Then you can argue it in court, but miss me with that nonsense. Whisper, appreciate you joining, brother. Really appreciate your perspective on this. Chelsea, really appreciate your perspective on this. Thank you guys for being there in support. And it was good to be on that panel with you today, Chelsea. That was fun.
Yeah,
sure we'll
come anytime. I like company.
I know.
No, thank you so much.
Guys,
I'd love to argue with you tonight, Pax.
what do you want to argue about?
I want to argue about the current case, the hush money case.
We could talk about that if you
You
want.
wanna, yeah, I would love to.
Oh.
You're like,
I'm
I think
happy.
it's good. I think it's good for us. I think it's
Sure.
good for us to have a genuine conversation because
Sure.
we are both on two different sides of this. Like you,
We are.
I think, like I said, I think it's going to end up in a hung jury. I don't see it being any other way than a hung jury. Like, how do you? What is your difference on that one?
Well, why do you think it's going to be a hung jury? Why though?
Because the way that the jury has been vetted. I mean, if we look at who is on the jury, if we look at all the jurors that have been examined so far, there's clearly like always Trumpers, right? There's clearly going to be those people that are going to be like, he's not guilty no matter what. It only takes two, right?
One.
There you go.
Only takes one. So okay, but so you believe it's going to be a hung jury just because of the complexion of the jury?
Correct. Just from what we've seen, like if we look at if we look at how the jury was seated, if we look at the answers to their questionnaires, which are available, if you look at everything that's available on those jurors, it's clear to me that at least four of them, there's not a chance that they're not going to just go for Trump on either side. Because this is where I get it from. They seem like the same type of people that were like, E. Jean Carroll was just a crazy lady. You know what I mean?
Sure.
They seem like the same type of person. They seem like the same type of MAGA. And so, and once again, I'm making assumptions. Like we can't, none of us can see into the future. It's a speculation thing. But I really see this one in particular being a hung jury. I can't see it any other way.
Somebody in the chat and then just stole my thunder, because I would say, because we're pulling from the same pool, literally the same jury pool in the civil trial against E. Jean Carroll. You could have said the same thing, and the evidence was overwhelming, and they were unanimous. That jury was.
That surprised me. That surprised me as well.
It didn't surprise me because again, at the end of the day, and maybe you're a bit more cynical about this than I am, with all respect. I believe that at the end of the day, human beings, when confronted with a simple question, evaluate the information that you see here, make a determination on what you see and not what you feel, and that's what I think the jury will do. I think the evidence. I think. So let me parse that out a second. I think it's a difficult ask for the prosecution to connect the dots from the obvious misdemeanor, because it was. There's no debate. There should be no debate that he's going to be found guilty of these misdemeanors, because it's documents. There's no way you could deny it. There's no way. There's no way. I don't care if you're asked under oath to say, do you believe what's here? There's no way a juror could say, I don't believe it. It's obvious. So let's leave that there for a second. The question then is whether or not the prosecution can make the case that, because in New York it requires, to make it a felony, you have to be a misdemeanor to cover up another crime makes it
Correct.
a felony. So that's the connection. So that is going to be a little bit more difficult to prove, but keep in mind, we don't know the entire witness list yet. We don't know all the evidence. We know that there's text messages now. We know that there's phone calls. We know that we have more information from Michael Cohen. People have been hanging their hat on Michael Cohen. And by the way, friends, I want to encourage you guys, don't go near his live. I know he's famous. You see him on TV all the time. He looks like this really, I want to talk to this guy. I want him to let my know. He's not an ally. He's a racist. He's a bigot. He's got a horrible past. I wish he was not on this platform. So that's just my advice to you. Take it or leave it. Whisper and I've been talking about that a little bit. But again, I think the challenge for the prosecution is to connect the dots, to say
Yeah.
this is campaign finance violation because of the way they did it. This is election interference, although he hasn't been charged with it, but it's an obvious cover up. It's an
Yeah.
obvious cover up. So again, I guess I'll ask you
I
the
guess
question again. Do you believe that the jury would be unanimous on the misdemeanor part, or do you still think that's
I
a
don't.
grand jury?
I think it's going to be hung. Like we've always said since the beginning that the Bragg case is the weakest case. We've always known it was the weakest case. I think the only reason that it's even getting heard is because Michael Cohen has been so vocal. That brought me to my second point, not just the jury selection, but also Michael Cohen himself. The vocal nature in which Michael Cohen has made a name for himself on TikTok, on various social medias, including his podcast. He's become like a very loud person. And I think it was one of those things where it's like, hey, we got to do something about this now. So let's just bring it. I've looked at every mirror of the case that I possibly can that's available so far, and I don't see it. I just don't. And that's, once again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney.
Neither.
This isn't my realm. But as far as the vast differences between all the other cases and this one, you're like, this is hard. There's some dots that are going to have to be put together that I think it's going to be a reach.
I think that Michael Cohen is hurting the case also by being on TikTok and talking the way he is, because everything can be used against him. Every single
Yeah.
thing that he says can be used against him. And he's just, I'm surprised as a lawyer himself that he thought that this was a good idea.
Michael, again, just playing devil's advocate. Michael Cohen's not on trial. His credibility is.
Nope.
His credibility is. But don't forget, we have people like David Pecker, and we have other people that are involved in this, a witness list and testimony from other people that will corroborate what he's there to testify. I'm not defending Michael Cohen. The only time he lied was in defense of Donald Trump. So let's be real about that. That's what he got popped for, because he lied in an attempt to protect Trump. Again, he's got a big mouth. He should not be on this platform. I don't know what his attorneys are. I don't know what kind of advice, or if he's just ignoring it. He wants the fame, he wants the clicks, whatever it might be. But again, back to this issue that I think, and I'm not going back on what I said. I still believe that the evidence is overwhelming, and I say that, and I'm not an attorney myself. I don't like that we frame it as a weak case. I think it is the weakest of the other cases. I don't think it's weak, though. I don't think it's weak. I think what's more likely to happen is that he is convicted, and then the sentencing and or elements of the case will be overturned in appeal. That's what I think.
Their biggest
Maybe.
argument on the right about this case is that they believe that Michael Cohen and Pecker were working together, and Trump did not have the knowledge of it, because there were interviews, or there were statements that were made that Trump told Pecker that everything runs through Michael Cohen. And so their argument from the defense side is that Trump had nothing to do with this, because it all ran through Michael Cohen, and him and Pecker did all this. Then they brought up the fact that Michael Cohen had $4 million that he hid from his taxes. Like, where did that $4 million come from? Like, I've spent all day in there today, guys. I don't know if you've noticed.
I think Cohen's always been a crook. I think he's still a crook to this day. I think he just got caught, and that's the only reason he's flipping. And because it's a good business decision, it's a good optics decision for him to flip. I mean, look at how well he's doing with the flip. But as far as like I said, I just don't see it on this one. And once again, I think it's good to talk about it. I think it's good to talk about it on the left when we start having these conversations about it. I think it's often good for us to not agree and to be on both sides.
Okay. First of all, President Pecker and a porn star walk into a bar.
It's the funniest
Sorry, I
joke.
did that a whole bunch of times last night.
The whole world is saying pecker right now. The media is saying
I'm sorry, I'm
pecker.
12. I'm 12. What can I say? So here's a different question that I want to ask you though, Whisper.
Yeah.
Is it so? Do you believe the evidence is sufficient enough that if there was not questions in your mind about the jury, that they would find him guilty? I'll ask you that, Anthony. I'll ask you that, Chelsea, as well.
I can't, with what I've seen so far, I can't honestly say that I would be swayed.
Okay.
And that sucks to say. Let me tell you how hard that is to say.
That's fair, because I think the hung jury, because your argument is that you believe there's going to be an always Trumper on the jury.
Yeah,
Evidence be damned, almost.
correct.
Okay, Anthony. I think I know where you sit on this, but I'll be
Say the question again for me.
So the question is whether or not you think Trump. So where we sit, we're on opposite sides of this. Whisper believes that there will be a hung jury. I believe that he's going to be convicted.
For the New York case. That's
Correct.
No, I think he gets convicted.
Okay.
For two reasons. Having lived in Manhattan and followed cases like this, I'm not saying that people in Manhattan or the surrounding boroughs are smarter. They're just more attentive to news, especially this type of news. And Donald Trump is a well-known person in New York, good or bad. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, he has a very long history of being on the wrong side of the law and found liable for an awful lot of things. So the bar that he has to reach to prove that this is not true is higher than it would be for anybody else because, one, people really don't like him because he's an asshole. Two, he's fucked over people in New York his entire life. And three, he lies about everything, right?
But he doesn't have to prove his innocence. They have to prove his guilt.
Yes, I get that, but I'm just trying to give you a little insight into New York jury,
That's
right?
fair. That's
Like,
fair.
I think the New York jury is going to literally just sit there and listen to all this information and go, yeah, so he had an entire year to resolve this and he couldn't? How do you get around that?
We're talking about the trial that's currently happening. So
Yes.
the hush money, the whole
Yes.
the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again,
he knew Trump knew all of the things that were going on were not what he no one is going to accept that he didn't try to hide this or this wasn't. I mean, it's just not. I don't believe there's any way there'll be a hung jury because there's too much evidence as to what happened, when it took place, why it took place. No one is disputing the facts.
Whisper is.
Wait, no, I'm not. I'm not disputing
Well, I think,
them.
but I guess what I'd asked you earlier was that you still believe, even though the evidence is clear, you still think because of the complexion of the jury that it's going to be a hung jury, whether the evidence is overwhelming or not. So then,
yeah.
evidence be damned. That was my point, right?
Oh yeah, for them, not for me.
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
That's fair. That's fair.
Oh.
Okay, I got you. No, I got you.
I think he's guilty of sin. Like, let me just be very clear. Like, I would love nothing more than to see Donald Trump locked up. I would actually love to see something different. I would actually not like to see him locked up. I would like to see him get everything stripped away from him, and him have to live like a common peasant. That's what I think. That would be way, way harder for him because when he goes to jail, if he goes to prison or if anything like that, he's a martyr at that point. He did it for the American people. But if he
Sure.
has to live amongst American people, you know how awful that would have to be for him as a
Yeah, like
narcissistic fucking egomaniac
he's got to
living
get
on
like
SSI.
a weekly rental at the Motel
Oh
6.
yeah. God.
Without his
You
makeup.
imagine that? Oh.
Hey, Chels, how about you? What's your thought on this thing?
I think I think they convict him. I don't think it will be hung.
Hmm.
My honest opinion of it is that I think that this new possible felony that they're tying it to is pretty tight. I don't know how Trump gets out of that. But I'm interested to see what the other witnesses have to say. Like I'm actually more interested in Hope Hicks' testimony than I am of
Big time.
Michael Cohen's because
I would
Hope
agree with
Hicks
that.
plays a different part in it. She would be the connection between what the theory is that Michael Cohen and Pecker, I can't say his name, like their little ruse together versus Trump. Like I think Hope Hicks definitely ties it together for me. So I'm more interested in hers. I know I can't.
That's
We said it
that's kind of my
like
point.
50 times this morning, and I literally couldn't hear it anymore.
Well, that's exactly my point because we haven't heard all the testimony yet. That's exactly my
Yeah.
point. And you might be right, Whisper. It's true. I mean, people, we know what the cult does. We know we've seen them. We know that he said that he could walk out on Fifth Avenue and unalive somebody and they'd vote for him. We've asked people in our lives. Anthony knows this. You guys have seen it. Doesn't matter. There's nothing he could do. I'd still vote for him. So we just have to hope that that person's not on the jury because that's not a fair and impartial jury, quite frankly. Similarly with the left, right? If there's people on that saying it doesn't really matter, I don't give a shit. He's guilty as soon as I walk in the door. I don't want that person in the jury either. I want like I was thinking about this. Like, could I know myself that I could literally sit there and be objective. I honestly believe it. I don't think I would be allowed to be on the jury because of doing this and because of whatever else, but I know that I could sit there and be objective. That's your responsibility, right? You have to be able to do that. I mean, what kind of person would you be if you have to look at everything through every filter imaginable?
And
We'll see.
by the
We'll
way,
see.
the felony that they're tying it to is New York State Law 17-152 for everybody that's asking in the chat.
17-152, you
Yeah.
said? Okay. I'll find that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting law to look into as well. Yeah, it's like I said, there's a lot of interesting things going on in this case. I was really disappointed. I guess my cynicism has grown since Monday. Let's be honest. Monday pissed me off when they upheld his bond. I was so mad about that. I was so beyond pissed off about that. That was a two-tier justice system at work right in front of our eyes twice on
Yeah.
that case. Fucking twice on that case. That pisses me off so bad that happened.
Well, I thought
There is not a
I agree, but let's not lose sight as to what's going on in that
No.
case. He's still
You're
he's still going to be paying.
He's still there.
Hundreds of millions
Oh,
of
yeah.
dollars. He's still going to have.
Oh yeah, he is.
I thought they were
Oh,
gonna.
yeah, he is.
I thought they were gonna punish Trump's lawyers for lying on behalf of the fact that they never were told about. Then I realized it was like part of the deal. Maybe the deal that they made involved like, hey, let's not throw these Trump lawyers under the bus for lying to the court about receiving knowledge that they could have paid the entire bond.
Yeah. What's the wrap up on the hush money case? Are we looking at 4 weeks?
I think it depends. They said they asked for 4 to 6 weeks. That's what
Yeah.
Bragg's office had asked for. They said 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Who knows? So the wrinkle that I heard today, though, this is a little bit interesting, and I talked about this a bit earlier. So this gets me thinking that perhaps that Trump wants to be found in contempt, because if you're found in contempt before you can be put in jail, whatever the penalty is, you can appeal it. And when you appeal it, the entire trial stops, which means the jury has to stop, all the court proceedings stop. So then how is it an emergency appeal? Does it happen in a day, 3 days, a week? Who knows? That's part of the game. And to your point earlier, then he becomes the martyr, right? Although he would still not sit in a jail cell. So part of what I would like to see during this process, and if we're being real, is I would like, first of all, the courtroom environment that he's in, he's never been in this kind of environment before. He's got no control whatsoever. Can't control the narrative because there's reporting. We now know that the transcripts are going to be released the day after. So yesterday's transcript is now available. So there's no way he can spin that narrative.
Is
He
it
cannot
up?
go. I'm sorry.
Is it up?
That should be. Yeah, I was checking earlier, and they're supposed to be announced by now. Um, so there's that whole piece, right? So he can't do that. So I like that for him, the muzzling, right? I like that for him. So that's why if he does have to spend time behind bars, with him without the martyr label, that is something that is just so, either that or he's just muzzled. Period. You can't talk about this. We're taking away your First Amendment rights. Fuck you. You're gonna have to go sit in your trashy condoville down in Florida and not say a word to anybody. No travel restrictions or whatever that might be. Things like that are just to make them uncomfortable. I don't think they would go so far as to do that, but so we'll see. We'll see. So 4 to 6 weeks. That's the notion. We'll track it. Court's off tomorrow because they do. Judge Marchand does mental health court on Wednesdays, so the trial will only be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So we'll see. You guys have anything else that you'd like to throw out there this evening?
No, this is excellent. I was really glad to. I've always got your back on this facts too. Like I said before, I'm always there. And it was this morning was. I was like, damn it.
I know. It's fun. Like I said, I've been in enough of these where they literally want to rip my cranium from the rest of my body. I never got that sense from Maud. I've never felt that way. But her followers or something. So thanks for jumping in, bro. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Chelsea,
you guys have a good one.
You too, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, friends. See you later.
Anthony,
Peace and love.
email me.
Yes, sir.
Peace and love.
Tri Valley for life.
What?
Hey, whatever fact says after this, I think Trump is guilty. Don't let him spin this.
I got you. I understand. Hey, before you leave, what do I have to do? I just have to recopy the link and put it back in the link tree?
Yeah, I put it in the Discord main there for you, so you can copy it through to there.
Appreciate you, buddy. Later.
Everybody
follow Whisper, Crow and Arrow, follow Political Mom, please. They're awesome people. The people to have on your side. All right. That was I'm glad we went through that. Everybody, thank you for indulging us on that conversation. I just think it's extremely necessary for us to have that conversation. As a reminder, if you've yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, please go do so. The link is in the link tree in my bio. And while you're there, why not check out the merch store? Fabulous items available. You can get your own Facts After Dark wine glass or a lovely hat, sweatshirt. And if you'd like to contribute to our channel in support of what we do, those are our pay links. Thank you very much.
How was my Vanna White? Was that pretty good?
Perfect. Put me a letter. And by the way, TikTok shop, we love you, but Anthony really loves you. Look at that flow. Seriously. Look at that flow. All right. So back to our regular scheduled programming. Why won't you vote for Biden? I know that there's a few trolls out there, but I think we scared most of them away because we were talking about things that are relevant to them. And I'm not sure they really like that very much. So I want to throw this out there, guys. Lately, I haven't even shared this with you, Anthony. Lately, I have been sort of, I'm not even sure how to say this. I've had some folks come at me a little bit that I've not been as open and available bringing friendlies up into the box. I want to say this, that it's never intentional. We can't get to everybody every time. One of the things that we try to do here is to try to avoid this turning this into an echo chamber. Yes, the last hour and a half was spent with 4 people who are aligned with the same political ideology, but it was intentional because we're talking about a case. We're talking about an experience that we had this morning. We're trying to provide more facts, but I don't ever want to be in a position where we don't bring folks up, but we're trying to engage in conversations with people in opposition. So I want to try to prioritize that. And Anthony checked me on that, and I appreciate that, bro. I think it's really, really important. So I think what I'd like to try to do, if possible, is reserve the first 2 hours of our live for potential opposition. And I think the way that we build our schedules for these conversations, we certainly have enough information on our side to be able to easily fill 2 hours, because you guys know I have such a difficult time talking. So I think that's kind of what we're going to kind of do kind of going forward. So that's our plan. I want to have the ability to pivot off of that depending on what's happening. We might reach out to experts if a conversation comes up, but I think that's what we're going to try to do going forward. You guys, please understand, I don't want this to become something where people feel offended if we don't get to them. And that's happened quite a bit lately. And that kind of stings a little bit because that's never the intention. I don't want people to take it personally. It just happens, right? So, any comments on that, Anthony?
I'll just say that um, we are a program that is constantly iterating and remediating, right? So we're constantly
That was very nice
tinkering
of you to say.
with what's going on.
Yeah.
And we know that there are some issues with TikTok and the way things are not showing up on the For You page. And so
Hey, Bears.
we're also trying to figure that out as we navigate going forward. Um, the mission of what we do will also be changing, right? Because we don't want things to be stale, right? And I know what it's like to be a friendly and to be in the box and want to come up. So I have empathy for that. But also, please do know that we've spent probably, I think I've spent, I don't know, off and on at least 4 hours today prepping for this event that I don't get paid for. So we have plans, and it's super important that you all understand that we're trying to stick to a script. Although, for the record, my co-host and brother loves to send me a ginormous brain dump, and then I go down the rabbit hole gathering information, and literally 2 or 3 hours later, hey, can we, and so whatever, right? So just know
Yeah,
that
I own that.
even our best laid plans aren't really what we're going to do. And
Yeah,
it's not personal, but we don't want to look like the conservative lives, right?
correct.
And please don't take it personal, because it's not personal, right? And again, listen, if you want to go have your own thing and do it your way, as long as it's not at the same time as this one, I will show up and support you, right? I'm not going to leave this to go support you, right? But you ask anybody who is a mod here, if I don't go and show up when Bunny's doing something, at least for a little bit, right?
Sure.
Just to show love, and other
Yeah.
creators too. So
So just
just
for yeah,
yeah,
for example, we wanted to get into. I'd asked Anthony for us to kind of unpack some of the unfortunate anti-Semitism that we've seen on college campuses across America, especially the Northeast today and yesterday, starting Passover, and about how how there's um, you know the hypocrisy from my perspective that we see about how the lives of Muslims have been lost at the hands of the United States government for so long, the lives of Japanese Americans, the lives of others, and there's been no outrage like we've seen in regard to this. I don't want to go too deeply down that road, although I'm prepared for it if you want to, Anthony. I think the sad part about that conversation is that, like we've talked about before, we went through this last night about the misinformation and
yeah,
propaganda and what it's doing and how it's poisoning people, and even on the left, people on the left have to accept the fact that they are. I want to be careful how I say this. I am I am not supportive. Excuse me. Hold on. I've long been against U.S. policy towards the Israeli government, not the Israeli people. I stand on the side of humanity. I think innocent loss of life is disgusting, no matter the circumstance. It doesn't change the fact that Israel has a right to defend itself. It doesn't change the fact that Hamas is a terrorist organization. It doesn't change the fact that the Palestinians within Gaza are caught up in a horrible situation. But the people on the left, the far left, for the stance that they've taken to literally open the door to fascism in our country, I think is just insincere. And I guess the question that I would ask then, because there should be outrage towards any loss of life that's a Muslim life or an innocent life, and we just don't see that. That's why I believe it's a bit hypocritical. So there you go. Anything to say to that, sir?
just to remind people, this is not new, and this is a lot older than 1948.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking pre-biblical times for those of you that are Christians, well before Jesus. There was Jews and Arabs coexisting on the same piece of land, right? Then came Christianity, then came Islam. And once these three religions showed up, two of them, for the longest period of time, were against one of them. And then two of them realized one of them wasn't worth fighting, so they just fought each other, right? See the Crusades if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But before Islam existed, there were Arabs and there were Jews and there were people practicing Zoroastrianism and there were Bedouins, right? And we all got along and there wasn't really a big deal, right? What I need people to be angry about is the colonialism aspect of it all, right? What I would like to see is some more outrage because we know Bibi is an asshole and that he needs to go and that the Israeli government needs reform. Period. We also know that there needs to be a two-state solution. Period. But Jordan has a part, Syria has a part, Lebanon has a part, mm-hmm. Egypt has a part, Qatar has a part. They are all culpable in this as well and complicit mm-hmm. in this as well. Bibi is by far the most recent history offender. But this stuff has been going on for a very long time. The Palestinian people as a movement claimed itself a movement and as a people in 1982. It's pretty new, mm-hmm. right? Absolute fact, Palestinians have been walking the earth a lot longer than that. But they were, some people called them Arabs, some people called them Palestinian Arabs. But it wasn't until religion got involved that there was a problem. So where the 1967 war happened, in which the Arab states wanted to wipe Israel off the planet and soon got their asses handed to themselves in very short order, they also didn't offer to help the Palestinians at all. No one opened their doors to them. No one gave them any help, right? Qatar today agreed to kick out the leaders of the Hamas wing of the Palestinian Authority. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to be angry about here, right? Bibi has done horrible fucking things in the name of I don't know what. Mm-hmm. It is also really important to people understand Bibi is not a leader of the Jewish people. He is a government official for the country of Israel. And that's where it stops. It stops within those artificial lines that were drawn, right? He does not represent us. He is not our leader in any way, shape, or form. And the manner in which he is behaving, specifically as we sit here in Passover, is absolutely antithetical to who we are as a people, right? We're not just a religion, we're an ethnicity also, right? And within our many sects within Judaism, there are people like me who are a Jew and an atheist, who culturally celebrate the things of our people, who literally has a yarmulke sitting at his desk, right? Who prays on a regular basis for humanity, right? And I don't pray to God. I just ask the universe to make peace happen and to stop the bullshit. But this bullshit has been going on since really about the 5th or 6th century, right? That's a long time. I get that you're angry right now. I get that you're upset because you just discovered what's been going on. But this bullshit's been going on for a very long time. The one thing I don't get, the one thing that really concerns me, is what's going on at places like Columbia. Like, I get it. You want people at universities to divest, or you want to do stuff. Any student of any particular religion is not the problem. As much as it offends me anytime somebody does something that is Islamophobic, or wants to persecute somebody because they were born a Jew, I don't get it.
Mm.
We have been allowing religion to dictate who we support for far too long in the name of capitalism within the last 100 years. And I think it's high time that we stop, that we recognize this problem is as ancient as Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And showing up at Columbia University moves no needles. It solves nothing. But you have a right to do that, and I appreciate your right to do it. I would just ask that people would do a little more reading, a little more understanding, and realize that your fellow citizens aren't the problem here in the United States, right?
Well said. Well said. I think the part for me is it seems like throughout history, Jews are the only group of people that seem to not have a right to either retaliate, defend themselves, and when they do, they get criticized for it. And I'm not picking sides here, other than to say I'm on the side of humanity. I believe that innocent loss of life because of politics and or whatever else, I think is disgusting and despicable. What I don't like, though, on college campuses is the attack on Israeli students or Jewish students, not even Israeli, Jewish students. For what? What have they done? They haven't done anything. And that's what I don't like. And neither have the innocent Palestinians have lost their lives in this battle. They've done nothing either. They've done nothing. Just to try to do what we all do, try to raise our kids to have the best life that we possibly can. There are political factions, and there's corruption involved, and there's hatred. We can draw lines throughout history about the formation of all organized religion is that literal plot of land for the most part. I mean, literally, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, all within miles of each other, if not literally the same place, the same square mile. So these are issues that are never going to be resolved. But I want people just to understand, if we spin it back to today and to our immediate future, that there are people that are on the left, right, that their hatred towards what's happening in Palestine, again, understandably so. We all feel the same way about innocent loss of life. Let's not forget about the innocent loss of Israelis' lives as well at the same time. That they're making a decision to not vote for Joe Biden because they believe it is Joe Biden's responsibility. People weren't talking about the G side connected to Afghanistan, and or when Pearl Harbor and what we did to the Japanese during World War II. So there was no conversations like that. So it's troubling to me that we have gotten to this place, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So just remember that fascism is knocking at our door, friends, and I think it's critically important. Make your voice heard. It's your right. It's your duty. I respect it, and it makes me proud that there's so many people that are willing to be activists in defense of something. Just make sure you're defending the right thing, whether it be human rights or whatever's on your radar. So there you go. Yeah. So it's 7:30. I mean, I think we made a decision to to try to keep the box open, but it doesn't look like we have a lot of op tonight. So I'm going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to bring up Digital Sister first, then we'll hit Clue. Thank you, friends. Continue to like and share the live. Good evening, friend. How are you tonight?
I'm good
Hi,
tonight.
sister.
And
Good.
thank you for inviting me up. And I did want
Welcome.
to
Thanks for
follow up
joining.
with this particular part of the conversation, gentlemen. And I want to be very clear that I think this is an important conversation, and we need to be very clear about some of the things that we're talking about in reference to this historically and the like. I personally was attacked on Columbia's campus before COVID. Columbia didn't do anything about it. And it's not the only time there was an incident that Black people had what we call, hanging instruments
Sure.
thrown around targeting students and professors. What I want us to understand is that we have to do this equally. Otherwise, there's no point to the argument. So if I come up here and tell you that what was happening for us, nobody cared about, there was no hearings.
I know.
My life was being threatened. They didn't do anything about it. Nobody was stopped. So I think it's very important that we're very careful about the words that we choose. I saw someone today on MSNBC talking about this on college campuses, and I felt like they did the same thing. They said, "Well, if I went on with a hood and went on campus, everybody will stop me." That's false
Mm.
because it never happened before, right? So we have to be very, very understanding of why people are pushing to certain degrees. I don't agree about all of the levels that things have gone to, but there's a little bit of disingenuous conversations being had around this part
Mm.
because when it was happening to us, we did not get this level of attention from anywhere. The last thing I'm gonna say, and while we, by the way, let me just say something else. We in this concurrent instance in 2024, we keep getting thrown in for no reason. Like, why would someone throw us in about the hood in the yard, right? Like,
Fair point.
that shouldn't even be a conversation. We are still being weaponized while something is happening that has nothing to do with us. While when things did have to do with us, nothing was done. Do you understand the duality of that?
Certainly do.
Okay.
Certainly do.
So I want us to make sure that as we're on this team together trying to work through these things, that we understand where the pain points are coming from and why some of it moves certain directions or others. Because please remember in 67, we were having the same fight amongst us during the civil rights movement and with also the Jewish population during that time. That was
Hmm.
also happening. We're in the same version of that timeline, y'all. So we need to be very careful about the things that we say and the things that we are attempting to still be on the same team for while not harming others in the process. Do you understand what I can repeat my words separately, but if you understand what I
I
mean?
got you. I got you. Absolutely, I completely understand what you're saying. It's not a broad brushstroke as in most cases, right? There needs to be historical context. There needs to be an understanding of all the various things that you know about, but so many don't.
Exactly.
There's historical lines that can be drawn. I mean, hate is hate, sadly. But there's your community in particular has been attacked throughout history. I appreciate that you painted a similarity to Jews in particular. Never again. I don't represent either community, and I'm not speaking for either community. I'm just saying that there's you made the connection yourself around the same time the fight for civil rights. Hate is hate. And it's disgusting on all levels. I've learned so much during this process and through this journey about blind spots that I've had about things. And you're right, sister. Words do matter. I guess my point in this whole conversation was I just don't always understand where someone's anger, if their anger is directed towards something, um, you know, anger is a natural emotion, and oftentimes anger leads to change. Hopefully, if it's positive anger, if there is such a thing. But I just don't always understand where this particular moment, where this particular anger is coming from, because it seems like the people that are being attacked, much like in your community, have nothing to do with the bigger picture. They're the ones that are caught up in it. They're the ones that are victims. I guess you could say, if that makes any sense.
And I just want to make sure that we're like when you said innocence, I want to make sure that we're looking at the victims and innocence in each of the categories. Like there are Palestinians who are being attacked too. There are Muslims
Mm-hmm.
being attacked too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into the history of it. This is not about the history. I that's a separate conversation to me that we can go into a deeper version of it. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to help us land with what's happening right now and where some of the anger is coming from and the shifting that I think sometimes people can't relate to because they don't know where it's coming from, which is what you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you said something, can I say you said something that to me would be offensive, right?
Okay. Sure.
Israel has the right to defend themselves, right? Jews have the right to defend themselves. Actually, that was the word you used. Jewish people have the right to defend themselves. Um, I keep hearing that. When were Black people able to bomb white people in America after being bombed?
It's a very fair point. That's a very fair point.
Give me a time. Give me a moment. Give me an
Never.
instance when we had self defense that white people didn't come back and unalive us.
Never.
Never.
Do you understand why it's offensive when we hear that?
I do.
So I'm not saying they don't have
I do.
that right. I'm saying you're pick and choosing who has that right.
I that I'll push back on because
Okay.
I'm not. Right? That's an
And I'm not saying
assumption.
that either. Yeah.
Right?
And I'm not
Okay.
saying that
Okay.
either.
Push
But
back. Push
I
yeah.
back.
I think that if we're gonna make this an academic discussion, which is probably where it should be laid upon the table, right? Making a statement about one thing doesn't negate or diminish another thing automatically. I believe the intent of the speaker and the context in which the speaker is speaking on determines whether or not we're neglecting to recognize history. Because here's where I get really confused, and this is where Digital Sister, I will need your help. As a Jew, I'm comfortable making certain statements about my people, both net negative and net positive. But when it comes to drawing parallels, right, I get super uncomfortable. Specifically, if I'm going to talk about Black people and Jewish people, right, we did at one point have a very tight and shared history here in the United States. That has since been um, fractured, perhaps beyond repair, for many reasons. So while I know in my head I probably should make the parallel comparison, right, for fairness sake and to do the right thing, I worry what the perception is going to be speaking as a Jew. Do I have the right to make that parallel? Does that parallel land correctly? And so, in deference to not wanting to offend people, I think then I end up offending people. Does that make sense?
Yep. So
Mm.
I want to make sure that everyone in the audience understands we are talking together as people are on the same side. For those that's in the chat trying to pretend that I'm something I'm not, please understand that's not what this conversation is about. I've always been honest and genuine,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always been upfront about where I see conflicts when we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to work together. But I
Mm-hmm.
see stuff in the chat, y'all. I'm just to the mods. I just want y'all to catch some of what I'm seeing. But I just want to make sure. So to what you were saying, the parallels are make me very, very nervous, right? So what I try to do is go, here's the parallel that happens for your group that goes back to H cost, right? But here's what it looks like because hold on, because H cost didn't happen on this land. See? So it's not that I don't agree with us working through, like, finding some ways to separate, but 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 what happened on this land to us is still happening,
Mhm.
and some of your people are participating in it, right?
Mhm.
So we get a little messy in that context, and so I just, when I say parallels the way that you're speaking to it, I get very, very nervous because they're distinctly just different. However, let me just say this: the book Cast really speaks to the ways in which there is some level of correlation. Have you read that book yet?
No, I've not.
Okay, another time, another day. You don't have to do it right now. But the book Cast actually attempts to bring those things in a little bit of an alignment, not parallel, but alignment of what is understood to be a caste system in the country that we're living in and the countries that other people living in, right? In this country, we are the bottom caste. So when something happens and we go, hey, something's happening, and people don't respond to it happens to another group of people, that's what that means, right? It's not necessarily a parallel as much as it's a reflection on, we have chosen a value system in the cast that we care about.
Mm.
Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a hierarchy. So when I asked that question about the bombing, I wasn't trying to be difficult, right? I
I,
was I
I
was
know.
asking a genuine question because our towns have been fully destroyed, and yet when has any black government, black group of people able to destroy entire towns of white people? And I'm not talking about Jewish people. I'm
Mhm.
just saying white people who have harmed us.
Mhm.
You get what I'm saying?
I do. I do. And I think, and first of all, I appreciate you calling that out. So, um, if we had met for the first time, I would absolutely understand the feedback that you gave me. And I'm not asking for your grace, and I'm not asking for you to do anything other than just, um, we'll leave it at that. I guess that I tend to, and this is a blind spot for me that I continue to work on. I tend to speak in generalities. So I certainly, I do believe that the Israeli people have a right to defend themselves. It doesn't mean that I don't believe members of the BIPOC community don't have the same right. It doesn't mean that I don't think women have the same right, or members of the LGBTQA community. But I tend to default to generalities, and I think that's a bit insensitive. And I think that's part of my growth, as I've learned because of that being called out on it. So I guess what I mean by that is I appreciate how direct you are. I really do. I think, I guess what I'm suggesting is that something to Anthony said. Again, I can't speak. I learned this from you, sister. Like, I can't speak for, or I can't say I understand about your plight. I can't understand what Anthony's been through as a Jew. I can't understand what a woman's been through or a member of the LGBTQA. All I can do is shut my mouth and listen. And that's what I try to do. I guess I would just ask that in a situation like that, um, the bigger picture for me, you would know that if we've never met before. I would like to think that you know me well enough to know now. And I'm not, again, I'm not asking for I'm not asking for I'm not defending myself. I'm not asking for anything other than, I need to do a better job of less generalization and more specificity. I guess if I'm going to make a statement like that, I guess I'll leave it at that. If
No,
that
no,
makes
no.
any sense.
No, and no, hold on a second. I'm not. Um, I just want you to understand. There's no reason to apologize.
I got you.
I'm saying it as, this is where some of the anger comes from, whether they come up to tell you or not. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I,
Where it sounds like you are giving, and Anthony is correct. Just because you're saying this doesn't mean you don't agree with this other thing.
Mhm.
But the only thing that ever gets said is the other thing. Our right to defend ourselves
Mm.
is never said,
You're right.
right? And that is the point that I'm making, right?
Right.
And when we do, we are seen as violent. And I just saw someone in the comment was like, we
Mm.
should never defend ourselves with violence. What do you mean? Violence happens to us every day. Like, do you understand? Like, how ridiculous is that response?
Mm.
Yeah,
Do you understand what I mean? Like,
I do.
so
100%.
so
I I
go ahead.
I two things, because I mean we really haven't spent much time talking, so I'm thankful that I get this time. Um, you will hear me say things quite emphatically, um, as someone who's in a Native and Indigenous peoples motorcycle club, that when it comes to defending marginalized communities, their attackers, my first thought is a felony. So um, I wholeheartedly believe that violence is necessary in the defense of people. Period. Just people.
Agreed.
Right. I also believe that um, I am not complicit in bigotry or racism because I understand what it means to be complicit in bigotry and racism.
Mm.
And I know for an absolute fact that since growing up, right, in which you're ethnically Italian and religiously a Jew whose family is from Morocco, which is a really weird thing to be, um, you get to see things differently. So when I said I pause on the parallels, there have been times in my life where I have been asked by people in certain communities not to make them because it was equally as offensive as not making them. So I defensively default to these generalities because I'll be quite honest with you. I don't know if sometimes just simply speaking how I feel is going to be offensive to somebody, right? But I also don't want to not say what I want to say. And I know it's a super thin line, right?
Excuse me, guys. Would you mind if I bring up Paige, the chameleon? She's been in the request box for
Yeah,
quite
go
some time.
ahead. So
Sure.
I want, if you're willing, I would love to have some offline conversations too, because this is something I struggle with, and I don't know how to strike the balance to clearly articulate what I'm saying for fear of offending somebody, which I guess sounds weird and somewhat weak.
Hi, Cage.
Hey everyone, how are you doing this evening?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
What's on your mind? You're on mute, Cage. There you go.
I've been sitting here. You guys have some really fantastic Discord. I love sitting here listening in. I just wanted to add something to what Digital said, and I want Anthony to understand where we're coming from because I agree with Digital. A lot of times, what we're told, and it's a double standard. It's, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, but I always fall back on what did the Palestinians do? They had nothing to do with the H factor. Okay. It's like when Digital was saying, people constantly bring us up. There's no reason to bring Black Americans into these types of discussions. It's meant to polarize people, and it's meant to put us in a position where we have to defend ourselves. Now, I don't mind having conversations when it comes to relationships between Blacks and Jews because I have actually gone to synagogue for quite a while in the past because I wanted to learn more about the Old Testament. And I had my reasons, my own reasons. But I think that we have to be very careful. Okay. And I say this in love. A lot of times with our Jewish brothers and sisters, there is this struggle Olympics that I personally am tired of participating in. Okay. Who's had it worst, longest, who's been suffering the most. The bottom line is there's some intersectionality with the amount of hatred that we're both facing. And that never seems to be enough to unite us. And like Digital said, there are a lot of people in the Jewish community who are participating in the anti-blackness. So it's very hard to know. It's like what Muhammad Ali said years ago when he said, you got 10,000 good snakes and 10 million bad snakes, and they're all coming at you. What are you supposed to do? Hope that the 10,000, save you? That's the issue that we face. We don't know who's friend or foe until we see someone's actions, and we can't go by their words. We have to go by actions because our lives depend on it. Just like, Anthony, just like your life would depend on it in synagogue if somebody decided to come harm you there. Our lives depend on knowing which is which. And oftentimes we don't know because there are a lot of people who come in and claim to be allies, and then something triggers them, and then you find out what their true colors are. So I'm very hesitant to come into these kinds of discussions because I love Digital. She says a lot of the things that I want to say on many
Same here.
panels. So I really don't hop up a lot, but I always feel like there are some times where I need to support her in what she's saying so that people understand that she's not being mean, she's not being rude, she's telling the truth.
Absolutely.
But it's hard for people to hear the truth from Black folks because we are always the ones put in a position where when we speak, it's an issue. When we say, hey, this is wrong, it's an issue. It doesn't matter how we present it. It doesn't matter if we're calm. It doesn't matter if we're excited, if we're angry. It doesn't matter because it's not well received. And that's what she was trying to say.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
From my
So I'm
perspective.
just going to mute real quick because I'm going to continue to listen because I think Digital is brilliant. I love listening to her. I love listening to you guys too. In fact, I've been following you since I've been on TikTok, and I love the conversations that you're willing to have. So
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
Kate. I
mute
appreciate
out, and if I have anything to say later, is it okay if I stay up here?
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you.
I think that's the important thing, right? Is that we're all here just having this adult discussion, right? My feelings aren't hurt
Same.
by being called out. It makes me a better person, right? And then I get to ask clarification questions because I struggle with, like, how do I do? And by the way, Cage, the struggle Olympics thing, I swear to God, that's one of my favorite topics to discuss because there was this unity that I experienced growing up in the 70s between the Jewish community and the Black community. It was incredibly strong, and it wasn't divisive. And I don't remember, this could just be youth, but I don't remember it being who had it worse. It was that there were points in time that sucked for both of us, and then it got better for one of us and didn't get better for the other. And that's what I remember, right? And I think when that really happened by the mid 70s, late 70s, that there was this irreparable harm that came. But the fact of the matter is, if you were to go to either traditional family's house, hey Cage, and sit down and share a meal, there's very little differences between how our moms act, how our grandparents act, how our aunties and uncles act, what's said at the table, what's not said at the table, what must be said outside because you can't say it at the table. There is more that unifies us from the level of family and separates us. But I think in hyper political climates, right? People tend to latch on to the net negative drama without understanding, and this is one of the things I talk about all the time. If we can find the similarities in ourselves, we will find that we can appreciate that there are differences and come to learn to understand them as best we can as someone who didn't have to live them. I will never say I'm an ally because, frankly, I think that's kind of a bullshit label to put on yourself. What I take is when the brothers that I ride with in my club, right? Who are from all different walks of life, right? When they appreciate me being in the trenches with them and standing shoulder to shoulder, helping to be a warrior for the people, specifically working in marginalized communities, that's what I need to know that I'm doing it right. If they don't stand next to me, it's incumbent upon me to go find out what I did wrong because I must have done something wrong, right? And I dislike the fact that I feel like I need to walk on eggshells, right? Because the fact of the matter is that every person on this planet has the right to defend themselves. Period. That's it, right? No one should be harmed by another person or a government. That it's 2024, right? So I will continue to listen, continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to be open to these conversations because I think this is what Facts and I can do, right? Is again, we've said this time and time again. I can't speak for another community. It's not my place. But it doesn't mean I don't have an understanding. I cannot understand because I haven't experienced it. But I have an understanding because people have been willing to sit down and explain it to me, right? And a lot of it happened when I was in the military, right? Guys that I had met that were from places in the United States I didn't even know. And they would tell me what it was like to grow up as a black man in Kansas City, right? And I'm like, no wonder why you joined the military. I'd want to get the fuck out too if that's what you had to put up with, right? And then it turns out to join the military, which didn't really end up being much better at the end of the day either, right? But these are super important conversations. And Cage, I would encourage you to keep coming up and do help us get called out if need be, and do hold us accountable, right? The only thing I ask in return is that you just, when you're willing, let me know what I need to know, right? Because I want to be better. I want to be a work of progress, not perfection,
Indeed.
right?
It's
And I'm
interesting. Sorry.
yeah.
I was just gonna say I'm thinking in Anthony knows me well, and I think Sista knows me well enough now too. And Cage, since you've been a follower for a long time, you probably do as well. I just feel like the comment that I made, I'm kind of going back and reflecting on that conversation about how the Jews have a right to defend themselves. That is coming from a place of privilege. For me making that statement, it's coming from a place of privilege because again, um, my my perspective on that is to not be specific enough, not understanding the connections to the hate that is constant and daily in the lives of Sista and Cage, and there's lack of an appreciation for that. Not intentional, certainly not intentional. I will never understand what you go through. All I can do is try to learn more. I agree with the ally term. I think it means nothing. I think you prove it. You less talk about it, more be about it. And I've been about it for most of my adult life, and I'll stand on that. But I think the learning process for me is just to because words matter, right? And I'm trying to really be better in that regard by stating things that I can't speak to one community having the right to defend themselves without considering the impact it has on other communities, if that makes sense.
Yes, that was what I was speaking to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's
Like,
oh, go ahead, Digital. I'm sorry.
yeah. So, yeah. So let me. So it's so important that that part lands. If there's no other part that anyone in this room hears or leaves with, because we have never been granted the right to self-defense. When we did like the Black Panther Party, what happened, right? Like every time we do it, we're called T-word. You see?
Right. Right.
Do you understand the correlation now where the
I
anger is
do.
coming from? It is very centered in being on this land and still not being able to defend ourselves, and then having people say, well, everybody gets to defend themselves. We don't.
Yeah.
And it's really important to not miss that in the conversation. Because as much as people say we do, because we have the right to the Second Amendment, be clear. If anyone knows we are carrying, we are not, we're unalived.
Right.
Let me add this real quick.
Go ahead.
One of the things people don't realize is
Thank
very
you, sister.
drugs. We have to defend ourselves in a different way because I lived in Virginia for several years. I raised my kids in Virginia, or they're all grown and gone. And we had firearms in the house, and you can open carry in Virginia. Oh, I'm sorry. Firearms in the house. I'm sorry. Pew pews in the house. I tried to make sure I used that word, not the other one. But
Okay. Who knows these days? I don't even know anymore.
it's so hard to keep up, and I apologize.
It's
Digital.
okay.
No, don't apologize for me. It's for you. It's to protect the life, and it's for you. Just
Yeah.
Got
FYI.
first. The thing is, I could have had a concealed carry permit. I could have open carried. It would not have been in my best interest because, you know, there are situations where we have been unalived in our houses, asleep, in our cars because we didn't hear the police officer say, get out of the car. It's not safe for us to even reach into our glove compartments to get out our information to give police officers. So one of the reasons why we get so upset when we hear about people saying, oh, you have the right to defend, we've never been given that right, and we are punished when we exercise it. That's the thing that people don't realize. We are punished for protecting our property. We are punished for protecting our families. We're punished. There was a gentleman who was unalived over a his car. Okay? So when people say, you know, this group of people has the right to defend themselves, the people at the bottom of the caste system with us are indigenous. Same thing's happening to them. So this selective protection really rubs us the wrong way because more often than not, there are times where we could be unalived and don't even realize that we're in danger because someone decided they were uncomfortable, or someone decided we were walking in the wrong neighborhood, or we were trying to get into our own car. So it's kind of hurtful when people say, well, these people have the right to defend themselves. And it's hurtful to hear people say, well, they have a right to live where they live. You know, people want to say, you know, this land was promised to me here or there, or whatever, but there seems to be no respect for the people who live there. There seems to be this attitude, and we're seeing it down in Mexico right now. They're deporting Americans, okay? Because people are getting tired of this attitude of there's a special group of people that can do whatever they want to, and everybody else has to comply. Now, that doesn't mean that the Jewish settlers who live there don't have the right to live there. People can live wherever they want to. But the concern is for people of color when we watch this, we're like, you know, this is just history repeating itself. The only difference is we get to see it in real time. So it's very difficult to have these kinds of conversations when people start with the premise of, well, they have the right to defend themselves. You can watch the news every day and see Digital and I don't have the right to defend ourselves. People who are coming across the border don't have the right to defend themselves. Indigenous people here don't have the right to defend themselves. There are plenty of people who live here who don't get involved in a lot of the things that are going on. But we live with the violence and the hatred on a regular basis. And the fact that we get punished for defending ourselves, our family, our property, or just, you know, so I think that there needs to be, trust me, there's intersectionality. Okay, we get that. But in my personal opinion, I can't speak for anybody but myself. Okay, I'll be 55 next month. All right.
Gen X, baby.
Yeah, that's right. The thing that I think people need to be, I don't want to say sensitive, but cognizant of is that we're all going through different struggles as marginalized communities. It's just there's no empathy That's the word I'm looking for. There seems to be no empathy for people like me in digital. There's no empathy for indigenous people who are going through this. There's no empathy for people crossing the border. We are the only ones who are not afforded empathy or compassion. And that is really part of why, when I watch what goes on overseas, it angers me when I hear people saying, well, if they would just give up the H people, they would stop. Lie. Okay,
It is.
that's the same lie that's being told in our communities. If you just give up the drug dealers, if you just give up the this, that's the lie. And until we can have the conversation about this lie that's being perpetuated, and it's caused more harm and it's causing a lot of hatred around the world, until we can sit and we can talk about the core issue, which is what has happened to one particular group does not justify them doing it to another, we will never be able to have rational, intelligent, and unemotional conversations. And these conversations tend to be highly charged and emotional. And it's hard to have them when you're sitting there trying to tell somebody what your lived experience is. And they're telling you, well, those people over there have the right to defend themselves, but you live here in this country where you don't. And somehow we're supposed to respect their right to defend themselves, but we can't do it. You understand that, correct?
I absolutely do. I mean, the example you gave specifically, Cage, and again, thank you for this incredible conversation. I'm so grateful that we're having it. About so people who look like me are expected to be armed to defend myself against people who look like you. That's the society tells us that that's what we're supposed to. That's how it's supposed to work. And we have these conversations. And did you call this out a while back? We had a conversation where somebody kept referencing inner city, and we knew exactly what he meant. And the term we changed it to, I think, was densely populated urban areas. I think that's how we decided to describe it instead, because that would make sense, right? So
Large metropolitan areas. We took out urban because urban is also a dog whistle.
that's right. My bad. You're right. Large metropolitan areas. Right. Even better said. So, in something you said, Cage, about, and I've had this conversation before, and that's why this whole element of trying to understand comes in, because I believe it's difficult to experience empathy if you can't at least attempt to understand someone's circumstance. So that the hatred in people's ideologies because they're unwilling or either incapable of empathy, especially for people who look like you, especially for people who we lost Digi. Hope she comes back up. For people who look like you, or for people that are crossing the border, or for women, or for any marginalized group. Again, I'm using general terms right now just for the purpose of this conversation, but I think society has taught them that level of hatred that everybody who doesn't look like me, they're supposed to hate. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say there? I'm gonna bring her back up.
Yes, absolutely. And this is where it gets difficult for people like us, because we can't have these conversations with people who look like you because of that.
Right.
And because we can't have these conversations, when we do have these conversations, the first thing that people do is get defensive. They get defensive. They start to, they start projecting, or they start to feel like we're saying that it's everybody. This is a systemic problem,
Mm-hmm.
and until people will start to understand, and it for me it would be radical acceptance for people to understand that this is a systemic problem. It's not that you have to understand it, it's not that you have to see it, but you have to accept the fact that it exists for it to change. And until people understand that it's not individuals but the system itself that's the problem, that's why these kinds of conversations are so emotionally and negatively charged, because people feel personally attacked, and they don't realize it's not you, it's the system. But because you live within this system and the system works for you, there are people who don't want to change the system because it works for them.
Correct.
But the rest of us have to survive the system, and that's the difference.
I get that. Anthony, did you want to say something, brother?
I want to thank you both. It's the second night of Passover, and I'm pulling triple duty here at the house. Um,
Tell Jen we said
so,
hi.
you know, feed the child, walk the dog. Um, does not make me a hero, just makes it really hard after working all day. Normally, I get to walk with my wife, which I really love, but of all weeks, she gets called into the office the last week of every month to work in person. And she's a proud worker of the state of California and a union worker. So, um, I would like to ask, um, if the four of us couldn't get together and have another panel discussion. I think this topic is far too important to have condensed into this amount of time. I think there's more to be done here, and I would be most honored and very interested in seeking participation, because there's one thing that was said, I think, that I don't hear talked about enough. So if I rephrase this incorrectly, let me know. In any instance, when we're talking about opportunities, right? Whether it's an opportunity to defend oneself, an opportunity to walk down the street with a bag of Skittles and a soda, whether it's an opportunity just to be in your car eating a hamburger, sleeping in your bed. I would like to have this conversation to really not solely address the systemic and institutionalized racism and bigotry, but to have a better understanding of when I say certain things, I'm using generalities and the hurt it causes, right? I don't know if there's a right way always to say something, but I think it would be really interesting and quite good for people to understand the perspective of the hurt and the anger. And if we're going to be about something, how do we go about being about that something without using or hiding behind being an ally, right? Um, and that's my takeaway. I thank you both. This has been really way better than I thought the second half of this live was going to go. And you both bring an incredible amount of value here. So please do keep coming up. Please do hold us accountable.
You guys aren't leaving yet. I'm not done talking to you.
Yeah,
Anthony
because
does.
because there's
Anthony
there's
needs
there's
to go.
there's no hurt or animosity, and just love and respect,
Hmm.
right? Because I'm an adult, and I don't need to be hurt and upset because somebody called me out on something, right? So I wish you all a fantastic evening. Tap the screen, gift the panel, and I will see you all tomorrow night.
Thank you, brother.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank
Be
you
well,
so
bro.
much. And
Thank you.
I was
Anthony,
practicing for a while.
Anthony, I just want you to know that I always come with earnest and not my feelings aren't hurt either. Like the goal is to help us find the unity in between this. And I really do think there is a very important conversation that we could not squeeze in this timeline about what happened during the 60s, about where that division came from, because I think
Yep.
there's way more going on about that breakup
Yep.
that we just do not have enough time to try to unpack. But
Yep.
I have a sense in my head now, um after the fact, because I was born. But I've watched what I've watched. Let me say this. I've watched the way that certain people, even in your community, tried to use MLK's words during that time. And I was like, wait, what? Hey. And even Carter, remember, Carter was president during that time. there was a tension that was happening that I don't think we ever unpacked, and we just kept moving on like everything was fine, and it wasn't.
Yep. Agreed. All right.
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
brother.
reach out to both of you.
Be well.
Everybody, peace and love, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Safe, buddy. Be safe.
I just wanted to add something real quick. I
Please.
start grad school in June,
Hey,
so
congratulations. That's
thanks.
awesome.
I graduate undergrad and start right immediately. But I would love to be a part of more of these conversations because I feel like when I remember you went through something for a while where you had to have some people, looked into, and I just
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that you have not stopped what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I want you to know that I'm listening. I know other people are listening as well. I would love to be a part of the next conversation because I feel like you guys get a lot done.
Try.
I just every time I come in here, I just really feel like you guys are doing the work. And I love the fact that digital holds your feet to the fire.
Yes,
I
she
just
does.
love
She's a
that.
mod. She definitely holds my feet to the fire.
I love that. So I wouldn't mind being a part of more panels. Just be cognizant that I'm working on my MBA next. It's a lot of work, and I'm also launching a business. So
For you.
um, yeah, and it's a lot, but I feel like these conversations are important enough for me to take the time to be a part. And I appreciate being allowed to have time to speak. Right? So I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to say how much I appreciate you guys for this.
Well, thank you, Keish, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support. And I think I was actually before you even said that I was thinking we need to do this again, and we need to figure out what this panel should look like. I don't think it's always the best to have more than four people. I think that seems to be a good number, but I think from what I've learned from the people when we do these specific topic, my glasses I can't see anything. This is awful. Whatever. Um, well, my dog literally ate mine. These are my readers, and they don't work for shit. Anyway, when we have these specialized topics, what I've learned from this is that people the comments that I get afterwards, people really appreciate these types of conversations because you're right, they just don't happen enough, right? And we have our complaints with TikTok, we sure do, but if people are willing to do the work, and I'm honored that you said that because I feel like that's what we're trying to do. This seems to be a good space for it, So I think if between the four of us, let's have that conversation. Let's do this because I agree. Who else should we include? What other voices do we need to hear? I think it's necessary. I've learned so much just in the brief time that I've been talking to Digi and you, Kate, for the support and something that you said again. I think it's about this understanding component. Again, I'll never understand. It doesn't mean that I should attempt to try to understand, to try to navigate through it. And I do realize that I still have these blind spots, right? I mean, as much as at my core, I really, truly, genuinely, like Anthony, I've literally stood between marginalized communities and harm, my body between people. I'm not asking for people to pat me on the back. That's a decision that I've made. And I wish more people could understand that words matter. And there's people that walk through life every single day thinking that they're not a particular way, or thinking that they're not racist, or thinking that they're not their, their support for particular political ideologies makes them complicit. And no one wants to be called out for that, but people need to be called out for that shit. So I think a conversation like this can potentially arm people who are listening with the knowledge that they might have these blind spots themselves. And they need to start to realize that. So less talk, how words matter. Just the conversation that we had tonight. Something as, from my perspective, something as simple as saying they have a right to defend themselves. Not even thinking how that lands on the two of you because you're not given that right. You're not allowed to defend yourselves, sadly. So that's what I've taken from this conversation tonight. So I want to thank you both for that. Anything else you'd like to say, guys, before? I don't know if there's much more we can talk about because this has been so brilliant. But what else would you like to say?
I just wanted to add one more thing to what you said, which was really awesome. And that is, the fact that we have to call these things out. You cannot change what you can't acknowledge. If you don't know that there's a problem,
Right.
then you can't change it. If you're unaware of it, then you'll go blissfully, ignorance is bliss in these types of situations for some people. But I really think that because so many people realize that the work needs to be done, because now we can't get around the fact that we are seeing atrocities in real time. And I'm not just talking about in that part of the world, we're seeing it all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's starting to show us what type of human beings we are. Our humanity is coming into question.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have these types of panels, we can learn from each other and we can look at it from each other's perspectives. And I think part of the problem, at least for me, and you're Gen X too, so in the 80s, I think we got along a little bit better because we didn't know each other a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, we
It was all the neon and parachute pants and
and we all watched MTV and
exactly.
VH1. I mean, there was a little bit more of a common ground.
Yeah.
But I think today, what's happened is with social media, it's made us more aware of the world around us. Because if you think about it, you can stay in your own little bubble and not know what's going on with other people and not think about their plight, their condition, their situation,
Right.
how you can help. I mean, it's one thing to watch children starving in a commercial. It's a totally different thing to see it in real time on TikTok.
Right.
And I think that's what the change has been. There's a shift. People are starting to question what they believe. They're starting to question what they've been taught. They're questioning their history. And now to be able to have a platform in a form like this to flesh this out is good. Dr. Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, you need to believe them.
Right.
Well, now people are starting to say, hey, these people are showing me who they are, and I might have had some misconceptions or some assumptions about people that now I get to see who they are, and I was wrong. I might have believed one thing and not another. I remember we were on embassy duty years ago, and I was in a mixed marriage for 20 years, and I remember thinking, we're going to Lithuania? I don't want to go to Lithuania.
Wow.
I'll stay down in Lithuania. It was the best experience. But if I had resisted, I would have gone over, without an open mind, and I wouldn't have met some very wonderful people. And it's because I'm a little bit more open-minded than some people because of my life experience. And I won't say it's because I was raised that way. I was part of a military family. We moved all over the place. So I became a more open-minded person because I experienced other people and other cultures. So it made me learn and grow as a person. And I think that's what TikTok has been doing for people. They're learning and growing because you're not just seeing your own culture, your own way of life, your own ideas, your own thought processes. Now we're all learning from each other in very tangible ways. So
there still needs to be a willingness. You're right.
Yes.
The opportunity's there. There still needs to be willingness.
Right. But the first step is having the opportunity, because I can't change if I don't have the opportunity. But the willingness, like you said, needs to be there. And you start with where you are. That's what I learned a long time ago. Start with where you are. And as you go along, you will gain more and more people who will, not just because they want to change, but sometimes out of necessity, because this is a global world. And there's got to be some changes made, because we're all in contact with each other now. Pandora's box has been opened, and you can't unsee what you've seen. So, and I don't mean to sound all cliched like that, but those are the types of things that come to mind. We cannot unsee the hatred anymore. We cannot unsee the lack of compassion. We can't unsee our lack of humanity anymore. We just can't unsee it anymore. And some people will be faced with it, and they will stand up and say, I need to do something, not just for myself, but for the community at large. And other people will turn a blind eye to it and continue to go through their lives. We can only work with the ones who look and have their eyes opened and decide to take the red pill. I hate to say it like that, because there's that. But if you look at the Matrix, we have a choice. We can take the red pill or the blue pill. And for those of us who've taken the red pill, we become better people.
And it takes more people that look like me to be happy, that are willing to have these conversations. Thank you, Cage. Appreciate that. Digi.
Yeah, so I think the challenge of the conversation always sort of lands in the space of um, people finally seeing the atrocities,
Mm.
and that includes people finally seeing the atrocities that America has done to us, as well as what America has done in other places. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I absolutely do. Talked
And
about that earlier. Yep.
yeah, so I've been in lives where I've tried to have this conversation with people about um, the myth of the American exceptionalism. It was designed so that anything America did would be seen as positive, good, and great for everyone involved. But the reason that we're having the crisis at the border is because we harmed other people. They're coming to get their due. Like that's what's a lot of that's what's happening, right? So then people get mad at like, why are these people coming? Because we messed up.
Yeah, we destabilized their country. Of
We
course they're
messed
going to come
up.
here. Yeah, exactly.
Like I can own America too, while also holding America accountable for messing up in my community at the same time.
Indeed.
So when people are like, well, you know how many of the countries America has messed up that wherever I go, I still have to deal with? What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm still a Black woman.
Hmm.
And I'm a Black American woman where I could go in certain places that people don't want me there because I'm American, right?
That's right.
So it's that part of it that really becomes the conversation, not only about opportunity, but about reality. Let's sit in the reality of the harms that this country has caused, and let's find the places so that we know what accountability looks like.
Mm.
And a lot of times, what I think happens, I say, "Hey, something's wrong." Y'all are like, "Well, don't make me feel bad." Accountability of the thing you did wrong is all we're asking. We're not trying to call you out to make you look bad for some random reason. And I saw someone in chat say it. Do you understand what it's like to be abused and oppressed and having to finally speak up and then have your oppressor tell you that whatever you're feeling didn't exist? That's America. The average person says that to a Black person. Slavery's over. Get over it. It's in the past. They don't tell any other group of people that it's in the past. There's no other group of people that they tell their history is in the past.
And my great grandparents, my parents' grandparents were slaves. That's not 400 years ago.
No.
And my parents are in their middle to late 70s. They remember their grandparents because their grandparents were alive when they were children. This is what people need to understand. My grandmother died in 2021 at 101 years old. She was born the year Jim Crow started. My mother's mother.
Wow.
My father's parents were born in 1901 and 1903. Those were my grandparents. So what Digi is saying is true. We are the only group of people next to the Native Americans who are told, suck it up. And we are gaslit consistently when we bring this up. When people say, you all need to get over the civil rights movement. My mother started kindergarten in 1954. 1954. My dad started kindergarten in 1952. I'm from Washington, D.C. That is below the Mason-Dixon line. D.C. was segregated. My parents marched. They faced dogs. They went down on the mall and watched Dr. King speak. I am a third generation Howard University student, second generation Bowie State. This is not the past for us. Our relatives are still alive. I have a cousin who just passed away at 105 yesterday. So when people gaslight us and tell us to get over it, you are basically telling us that what our great grandparents, our grandparents, and our parents, by the way, in the 70s, bust into school. So that's me too. So when we hear people negate our experience because it makes them uncomfortable, or they don't want to talk about our history or what we've contributed to it, it is the equivalent of a death. It's erasure. And people don't want to hear from us because they're more worried about their feelings than the facts. That's why I love this channel right here. You know, facts still matter, but when it comes to our community, it don't matter. Well, it doesn't matter. And if we complain about it, or we march, or we protest, we are punished. And that's one of the reasons why whenever Digi is on these panels, I pay close attention because she really does articulate it well. Okay. And I'm not saying she's articulate because I hate when people say that about us. I'm just saying she articulates it well. Okay. And she conveys the message quite clearly. The clarification that she has when she speaks, there's no denying. But when I see people in the comments who say things that are so off base, it just goes to show that there are certain Americans who are so proficient in gaslighting, projection.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to understand something. I used to be a narcissistic abuse coach. I had to stop doing it because it was just too much. I mean, when you deal with people who have dealt with narcissistic abuse, I was narcissistically abused my entire marriage. It's a lot.
Man,
But
I can't even imagine that. Holy moly.
yeah, and what people don't understand, and this is what I love Circus Fairy for, racism is nothing more than racial abuse, and it's narcissistic in nature. So when we try to tell people what we're going through, for some strange reason, the people who their whole identity is built in being white, they are the ones who are the most dangerous because that's their whole identity. And anything that even remotely comes against that self-belief, they'll fight literally to unalive you, to keep that belief alive. And so for me, one of the things that I have found that's helpful, and this is what I found in coaching people, is you have to have radical acceptance. The problem with many people, and this I always say non-melanated, and people who go on my channel know I use that word, I say that. The problem with many non-melanated people is that is their whole identity. There's nothing else.
Right.
And when that is your entire identity, everything is incorrect. Because that's a false self. That's not the real person underneath. Because underneath all of that, there's a person with thoughts and feelings and hopes and dreams and goals. But because that mask of supremacy is there, the real person underneath that has to protect that false self at all costs. And so for us, the problem is not so much that people don't understand our experiences. The problem is we're dealing with people who don't want to take, like Digital said, accountability. They don't want to be held responsible. They don't want to deal with the consequences of the repercussions. And that is the crux of the problem. If we had a system where people had to deal with the consequences of these actions, they had to actually suffer consequences, and they were held accountable and held responsible, things would change. But again, it's a systemic problem. Until that changes, nothing will change. But the fact that you're having these conversations, it may not help today, but it's planting seeds. And that's the most important thing. You can plant seeds that can grow into a huge forest, but it starts with that one seed. We may not see it change in our lifetime, but I'm hoping it changes in my children's lifetime.
Same.
You know, I have a 28-year-old, a 24-year-old, and as of next month, a 20-year-old. I'm hoping that it changes in their lifetime
Mm.
because I know there have been a lot of changes in my parents' lifetime, but I don't want to see us regress back to what it was because we have someone who is willing to build on the fears of people, history of oppression and discrimination, building on the fear that they'll be next. We have to bridge the gap, and that means we have to have these conversations. They're not easy conversations, but we need to have them.
It's often, I mean, thank you, Cage. It's often even simpler. The reason that many people, non-melanated, don't want history taught. I think it's again, it's the ability to hide from the sins of the father, so to speak. And I'm hopeful as well. The 20, soon to be 23, 20, soon to be 21 and 16-year-old. I hope things are better too. But as our world has grown more and more connected, simultaneously we become more and more divided. So that's part of that, and I think part of the whole great replacement theory concept is that people who again look like me see an evolving demographic in our country. They realize that within 15 or so years, YT people will no longer be the majority in America, and they do not have the ability to process because at that moment they will be losing the privilege that they've always had, that we've always had, and it's something that they've not come to terms with. So instead, they lash out with anger. And what we know, as you guys well know, again, speaking from privilege, the racism, the bigotry has always been there. It's just maybe perhaps bubbled a little bit below the surface for most people to see. You guys have seen it every day of your life, but for the majority, people ignoring it, and then you have people who tout it, people who stand on the biggest bully pulpit in the world and say it's okay to be a bigot, it's okay to be a racist, and then modeling that for others, especially susceptible young YT men. And this is what's happened. So thank you for that, Cage. Digi, wrap us up.
So what I want to do in the wrap up is this. I want us to think about um, the balance between generalization and individualism. I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's where there's a lot of struggle, especially for people who look like you,
Mm-hmm.
because either they're individual or they're generalizing. And I think there's a middle. And I think there's a lot that's not being had in the middle. Let me say that. Because I,
I'm sorry. Did you say there's a middle and there's not a lot that's happening in the middle? I think
yes,
I might have missed. Okay, gotcha.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So let me, how, I should say it differently. I feel like it, it, it is generalization or individualism. How about that?
Fair enough. Got it.
And there's stuff in the middle that we get really messy about. Got me now?
I do.
And so when I think people are trying to walk, and I'm not trying to make people walk on eggshells. That's not my intent in anything I'm saying. But I think when people are walking outside of their individualism that they've been in for so long, that the only step is generalization when there's steps in between.
Mm,
Do you understand? Like, I feel like
I do.
people jump completely over. And so in that jumping over, we end up in these nuanced conversations that are not had when we should be having them. And that part is the part at the end of the day that I know is way more challenging for us to have because, like you guys have said multiple times, you don't want to speak for anybody, which I get, but you have to still keep the nuance of the.
Mm,
Do you understand?
I do.
You still have to keep the nuance of the different groups. somewhere in the middle of that before you get to the generalization. Otherwise, you're erasing the nuance, and you either individualism, which is my life, my
Right.
my version, or everybody.
Or not allowing a conversation to happen that might be productive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So I struggle sometimes when I try to have conversations with people where the generalization is fine, the top group versus the bottom group. That always I can tell people don't realize that they do it. Like there's different, like for example, I'm gonna say something like, for example, in our community right now, we're having these conversations about abortion, us, smortion.
You can say abortion. That's all right.
Okay. And we're still having it sort of as a general conversation for all women without understanding the details of the nuance of it, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I
Like
do.
there's way more nuance underneath that top tier term.
Correct.
But also abortion, sorry, I can say it. Okay.
You can say it. Yep.
Also, abortion is a tier of all women. It's
It is.
still not the top.
Exactly.
So when you lock me into even having a conversation about abortion and you still can't do the nuance, we haven't even gone up to the bigger one. Do you get what I mean by what I'm
I
saying
know
now?
exactly what you mean. Exactly. It's a great example. That's a great example.
We haven't even gotten to all the stuff up here, which is like why we're dying. Right?
It's exactly right.
It's like, okay, I want to have that conversation, but if you lock me down here, then I have to have a conversation with you about the nuance about the fact of how this is even different for us down here. But we're not even dealing with all the layers of the top tier of it because we're down here. By the time we come back to the conversation for us to get back to the top tier later, you're mad again.
It speaks back to the whole like the system narrative that we were talking about
Yes,
before about how in large metropolitan areas, those are the areas that are targeted first to close health centers that would provide that care to you, for example. That's another example of how the system does not support those that it should.
exactly. It's like it's. I wish I could explain it better than what I just did, but
No, I got you.
but that's what it sounds like to us.
Sure.
So you're forcing us down here for this lower level conversation when we really, really want to talk to you about the stuff up here, but we can't get to that because you can't even do down here right.
Right.
So we have to fight down here, and there's so
But
much more to be talked about.
fight for the scraps just to be able to, yeah, it's,
Right.
yeah,
So that is the key to why when I try to have these conversations with people and I'm trying to be very careful about what I say is that I understand this thing right now in this moment is important to you, but that's still not important to me in the same way that it's important to you. I want
right.
you to come up top. Do the
Privilege
top.
again.
I'm I'm so glad you brought that up.
Mm. Yeah, it's privilege again, right? It's another example.
So yes. And then sometimes even in that, um, even in those moments, I think people struggle with moving themselves through their own systems of belief and um, experience in the system itself, like system of belief and experience in the system,
Mm.
in the way that when someone like me shows up and goes, "Hey, abortion ain't it. Stop talking about that." Who would get mad at me for that, right? Like, not to say I wouldn't say that. Like abortion is important right now.
I got you. Yep.
However, if I showed up and said, "Hey, here's why abortion is important," you know what they did? They went back to laws that were forcing me and black girls to give birth. So now it affects you. Talk about us. And people go, "Why should we talk about you?" No, no. Those laws that overturned Roe went back to 1825, forcing black women and girls to give birth up to 27 times.
Look what happened in Arizona recently.
Arizona's law that everyone keeps arguing over, it's like that's the law. There
Yep.
are over 50 states that had those same outdated laws that they did not remove.
Yep.
So if you don't want to talk about us, then how do we fix this?
I wanted to add something real quick.
Please.
I'm glad you brought that up because with the way the laws are set up now, I had a miscarriage between my oldest and my middle. And according to the law, I might have been incarcerated over something that I didn't even know was happening. I was pregnant until I went in and they told me I was losing the baby. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But also, these laws are dangerous. I have 3 daughters. Okay. I worry about them because I hemorrhaged with my oldest daughter, hemorrhaged with my youngest daughter. Thank God we had military insurance. It was necessary because they actively saved me. That's not always the case in metropolitan hospitals. In fact, more often than not, we are ignored when we are having problems and complications after birth. So Digi is right. People do not consider us to be part of the conversation, and we have the highest mortality rate when it comes to childbirth. So when I hear this conversation of it affects Black women too, no, it disproportionately affects us.
Indeed.
Don't get the same medical care, we don't get the same treatment, we don't get the same emergency treatment when we're in distress after giving birth. So these laws are highly they're very risky for women who are already at risk. And like Digi said, they're only taking one piece of the abortion issue. There are women who have stillbirths. There are women who have ectopic pregnancies. There are women who, for whatever health reason, they shouldn't have children. There are women who are diabetics who've been told they should not have children. There's just a whole plethora of women where this is literally an unaliving sentence. And it's all because there are a group of people with a set of archaic beliefs that they know better than doctors. And what's crazy is I can't believe anyone in their right mind would expect a 10 or 11-year-old girl to give birth after she's been SA'd and have the nerve and the audacity to tell her that that was God's will. These are the types of conversations that we can't even begin to have because people are not starting from a rational standpoint. They're not even critically thinking. There is a reason why this is a medical procedure. The thing is, what's been thrown out there is the elective procedure. They're not putting in, and that might be 10%. They're not put. I'm a data scientist, okay? So the thing is, they don't look at all the data. They don't look at all the information. They don't look at every situation. Just cherry picking the ones that suit their cause. And like Digi said, as Black women, we are at the highest risk of mortality in a system that already underserves us.
And when you hear that rhetoric from the right about how women using birth control, using abortion as birth control, that is the ultimate dog whistle because we know exactly where that is, without question.
And yeah, I just want to say to the people who are saying in the chat, yes, Serena and Beyonce were ignored, and they both have money, so it's not about money. I do want to just get us back to what you were trying to get at, and that is we've got to keep the binary from happening. How about that? I want us to think about things as plus and or more, right? I want us to think about things where
Sorry about the dog.
it's okay. Where when we see inclusivity in the conversation and to include diversity of the ways in which those things look and operate for different groups of people, whether you know what happens to those people or not. Like, keep the door open. Always make sure the door is open for the for that nuance. I think I want to stop there. There's so much more I want to say, but we're
Yeah.
up to 9. So
Yeah.
I'll just say I am not saying that people are intentionally trying to be harmful, but I
Yeah.
am saying that people have lived a certain life that they've lived being harmful, not acknowledging the harm that they've inflicted.
Well said. Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time and for doing this evening, and for the continued, just education that you provide all of us. I really, really I'll reach out to both of you. I want to have this conversation on a dedicated platform, and let's discuss who should be included and how specific we can be. It's 3 hours enough time to do it a series, but I would hope that you would take me up on that offer, because I think it's incredibly important. And like you said, you both said it. These conversations need to happen. So I'm humbled and I'm honored that you were both here and willing to engage tonight. Thank you for your continuing education of myself. I really appreciate it. To the mod, to our audience this evening, thank you for hanging in. As is always the case, we start down one road and we end up in an entirely different country, which is part of the uniqueness of this platform that we've all worked really, really hard to create. Tomorrow night we'll be back at it again, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Cage, Digi, mods, everybody, thank you all very, very much, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Thank you, friends.